You're listening to the Two Mics on TalkSport.
This is a repeated programme, so please don't call the show as you won't get through, but you still may be charged.
Enjoy!
Good morning, I'm Mike Graham, he's Mike Parry, you're listening to the Two Mics. Coming up on the show today, it's a lavish menu of delight from the Isle of Muck in Scotland to Rio de Janeiro and the fallout from Britain's success at the Olympics as the plane lands at Heathrow and the athletes all come off wreathed in gold and coming back as heroes, really. 67 medals, not bad at all.
I'd say that's pretty heroic.
It is
really
very heroic.
Yeah.
We'll be talking to former Lib Dem MP Lembit Opik as well about how he's been savaged by the critics up at the Edinburgh Festival in a terrible, terrible way. And of course, it's Ask Porky as well, where the Porkmeister will solve your problems, answer your questions, and explain the inexplicable. That's just a menu to begin with, right? We've got loads more. We've got loads more coming up. You're listening to the Two Mics with me, Mike Graham, and Mike Parry. And it is time to say a very, very good morning to Mr. Mike, Porky Parry. And that, of course, is your favourite singer, Liam Gallagher, isn't it?
Of course it is. Yeah, Mike, good morning to you as well. And the reason we've kicked off with Liam Gallagher is that Liam Gallagher and I had a bit of an exchange on Twitter.
Spat, I think
I'd say a spat. And,
you haven't had another one, have you?
We haven't had another one, no, not at all. And, of course, I don't hold any grudges against the boy for calling me some rather unpleasant things.
He did say some rather nasty things about you,
Well, I probably deserved it, so that's not a problem
Most
at all.
of which we can't actually repeat on the radio.
Exactly. But anyway, what we did then is we got to his people, because people like Liam Gallagher have huge PR machines around them.
They do.
That's something we'll never need, even when we come back from Edinburgh as, newly discovered world superstars and that kind of stuff.
Hopefully we won't get savaged like Lembit Opik.
yeah, exactly. We're going to talk to Lembit during the show. But we won't need all the PR machinery. We do it ourselves.
We do.
However, Liam has these people, and they do a very good job. Debbie is the representative for Liam Gallagher.
And she's communicated with us a few times, hasn't she?
Yes, a few times.
Yeah.
She said last time when we asked whether he'd come on and talk to us about our Twitter spat, she said, Liam hasn't done interviews for over 4 years as he has been having some time out. He has no intention of doing interviews again until he has something to promote. And when he does, it will be relevant. And then here comes the killer directed at me. Not about Twitter spats from someone trying to get a rise out of it.
And is that what you were trying to do? Were you trying to get a rise out of it? Say a very, very good morning to Mr. Mike, in some way, Parry, and that, obviously, kind of on the, shall we say, downward spiral
of course it is, Well, good morning to you as well. And the reason we've kicked off with Liam Gallagher is that Liam Gallagher and I had a bit of an exchange
on Twitter spat, I think.
I'd say a spat.
You haven't had another one, have you?
We haven't had another one, no, not at all.
And of course, I don't hold any grudges against the boy. No, of course you don't. He did say some rather nasty things about you.
Well, I probably deserved that. So anyway, I just pointed out to the boy, exactly. But anyway, what we did then is we pointed out to his people, because your brother is of Lembit Opik type talent. We'll never need, even when we come back from Edinburgh as, newly discovered, you get some stars and that kind of stuff. But I meant
he get savaged like Lembit Opik.
Exactly. Yes. Going to talk to Lembit during the show.
Well, he didn't take it very well.
We won't need it well. Anyway, what's happened is,
he's now given an interview.
However, Liam has these people, and they do a very good job. Debbie is the representative for Liam Gallagher, and we've picked up a bit of that. Yes, a few times. A bit of that interview. She said last time when we asked whether he'd come on and talk to us about our Twitter spat. What is that?
That's exactly right. You don't have any friends. He's got no friends. He has no intention of doing interviews again until he has something to promote.
And when he does, it will be relevant.
Well,
and here comes the killer.
He's a guy
that's used
to being around a lot of people. He's
used to having
Twitter
an entourage, someone trying to get a rise out of him.
And is that what you were trying to do? Were you trying to get a rise out of him? Were you trying to kind of victimise him in some way? The guy's obviously kind of on the, shall we say, downward spiral of his career. I don't think that's
regards him as a friend.
When did the milkman start delivering
milk,
lactose-free
by the way? You can only get to once again.
Yeah, they must be in sort of Primrose Hill.
I was going to say, you get that amongst the metropolitan elite, as we call them.
And that's a question that not so many people are actually asking.
He says, I can count my friends on no hands. Now, we talked yesterday about the original quote. So anyway, I just pointed out to the boy, in a jovial sort of fashion. I just pointed out, well, considering that your brother is of Lennon McCartney type talent, and some people believe so James Brown was saying you don't have 5 things. Which again, here is saying I haven't got any friends. So he says, I can't count them on. If I had no hands, I could count all my friends.
But again, the difference between him and you is that he has found himself in that position. He's now given an interview, though.
He's given an interview to what's the magazine called?
It's called Q.
Yeah, I think the difference between Liam Gallagher and by the way,
there are quite a few.
There are quite a few. He says only Debbie is his friend. And you pointed out that he and I have got one major thing in common. What is that?
That's exactly right. You don't have any friends. He says he's got no friends. His feelings are the difference between him and you, though, is you don't care.
Maybe it is the same. But anyway, he says I'm a lone wolf. Now, the point is, I mean, it's all tongue-in-cheek, because if Liam Gallagher suddenly said, look, I want to acquire a few friends, and if he said, for instance, I'm going to hire the Royal Albert Hall, he says, so anybody wants to come along and be my friend can join me.
But they wouldn't be his friends, would they? They'd be paying sort of customers.
Well, what I'm going to say is, if I did that,
when did the milkman start
delivering Porkmeister, I've decided I now want some friends. I'm going to hire the Royal Albert Hall.
And let people in for free.
I was going to say, you don't get that amongst the metropolitan elite, as we call them. No, I don't think I'd fill the downstairs room. He says, I count my friends on no hands. Now, we talked yesterday about the original quote coming from the Godfather of Soul.
Well, I'd James Brown.
James Brown, yeah, you'd come for the booze.
That's true.
But I mean, the thing is with friends, you know, I've always, certainly in my mature adult years, believed that a friend in need.
Yes.
Oh, Liam here is saying I've got any friends. So he says, you know, I can't count them on. If I had no hands, I can count on my friends.
But again, the difference between him and you is that he has found. But you said this yesterday, and I think that's a terrible kind of way to go through life, thinking that everything is going to end up in a terrible,
terrible mess. Yeah, I think the difference between Liam Gallagher and I...
It doesn't. No, there are quite a few.
Most says only Debbie is his friend. She's the mother of his child. I have deliberately cut adrift
who's been answering our request. What, you mean you fall out with them?
Well, they've just screwed me over, you know, and I don't like being screwed over.
But is it about, like, individual issues or about money or about what?
It can be about anything. It can be about family relationships. If Liam Gallagher suddenly says, look, I want some members of your family to get on with members of their family, I'm going to hire the Royal Albert Hall, so anybody wants to come along and be my friend.
Money's always a bad thing. But they wouldn't be as friends to get involved paying
to get customers. Well, what I really do believe in that, you know, neither a borrower nor I've decided I now want, you know what I mean? I'm going to hire the Royal Albert Hall.
And let people say no.
I tell you, push off.
Would you?
Free.
Well, then you'd probably disgraceful.
But it's for your own good. No, I wouldn't.
Yeah, well, that's not really. But we would probably fall out if you did lend me. Well, no, you wouldn't fill it with real friends. You'd fill it with people who want to come and see you perform.
Well, I'm
that's the trouble. You did, but you took that packet out of the actual cart. Well, I'd come. It was kind of a very bizarre gift to give them. That's true.
But I mean, the thing is, getting back to old Liam, he goes on to say, again, he's
promoting
believe that a friend in need is just a blinking nuisance.
Not a friend indeed.
It says the new Oasis docu-supersonic and also most of the friends eventually let down anyway. But
you said this yesterday, and I think that's a terrible kind of way to go through life, thinking that everything is going to end up in a terrible, terrible mess.
Q magazine.
Well, that's when the premiere happens. They might be reunited, but they might not.
Most of the friends that I've lost, exactly. But he says things like, I'm going to shock people.
What do you mean you fall out with them?
Well, they've just screwed me over, you know, and I don't like being screwed over.
But is it about, like, individual issues or about money or about what?
It can be about anything. The quote I most like here relationships is sometimes difficult. You know, some members of your family don't get on with members of their family. The reasons why he's a superstar can be about money, of course.
He says Noel has small man syndrome. Money's always a bad thing to get involved
in. He blames the breakup of Oasis. I really do believe in that, you know, neither a borrower nor a lender shall I be. You know what I mean? Small man syndrome. Well, we do sound checks when we do stage shows. Push off.
Would you?
I tell you to push off.
Make sure that everybody can hear you. But it's a bit different. It's not really. But we would probably fall out if you did lend me. You have to make it if I didn't pay you back.
Well, absolutely. Because I bought you 2 cigarettes from our stage.
You did, but you took the packet out of the actual carton. So it was kind of a very bizarre gift to give me.
60 or something.
Well, they've got to be a lot.
Anyway, get back to old Liam. He goes on to say, again, he's
promoting anything, by the way, because apparently, according to Dennis at Noel, he's only going to give an interview.
And then he says here, it says the new Oasis docu-supersonic. You know when your kid puts on makeup, see, but not as much as seeing Liam and Noel reunited at the premiere, according to a reviewer of this particular piece in Q magazine.
Well, that's when the premiere happens. They might. He hasn't really got Liverpool, they might not.
No, he hasn't. Actually, I'm not
one of
going
them
to Manchester.
Exactly.
But he says things like, I'm going to shock people.
Yeah, but isn't he getting a bit, as I said, a bit old for all this? Well,
maybe.
He needs to grow up a little bit. Now, what about Team GB? They're coming back as we are speaking. Is he getting a bit old for that sort of thing? It's a great thing to see.
The quote I most like,
yeah, why are they going back up the steps?
For the picture. 3 paragraphs starting on the steps. He points out the reasons why he's a superstar and his brother shouldn't be.
He says Noel has small man syndrome.
The parade is in Manchester.
The parade is in Manchester.
He says he blames Noel for the break on the plane. He's going to take off and fly to Manchester.
Well, I assume the parade isn't going to happen
stand in the middle and sing. He's got small man syndrome. Well, we do sound checks when we do stage shows. The point of sound check.
I think you're right.
Make sure that everybody can hear you.
But it's a bit different when you're just talking more than when you've actually got back and you have to make it only work.
Well, absolutely, because
I'm slightly disturbed. We're going to to Matthew Side
from our stage,
who is a former Olympian himself,
if they put him in the wings
because,
or something.
again, every 4 years this question comes up. Why? Well, they've got to be a lot more. It's a lot more complicated. But what he's basically saying is that he's a front man, and the Olympians' job should be so well behaved. Doesn't really make that not always true, is it?
Well,
he says that Noel shouldn't be a front man.
And then he says here, I'm not quite sure what this is. You're absolutely right. But you know, when your kid puts on makeup, I read all his stuff, and I really listen to talk to him because actually, even a brain the size of Matthew's, he's a very clever man.
Very
clever man, very thinker.
He hasn't really got Liverpool accent.
The question, he just examines the problem.
Right.
You see what I mean?
But it's a snobbish thing, isn't it, really? Because the Olympians are seen as getting a bit, as I said, engaging in sport.
Well, maybe.
He needs to grow up a little bit. Now, what about Team GB? They're coming back as we are speaking. Yes, coming up off football. It's seen as still working class sport. Yeah, why are they going back up the steps?
But Matthew points out stand on the steps after they sometimes have to live by a code of honour. So, for instance, you know when you see the guys bow to each other before some of the martial arts, that is the code of honour within the sport.
But that's
not they came back on the plane because he's going to take off and fight in Manchester.
No, it's in the Olympics. Yeah, no, I know it's in the Olympics, but they don't bow to each other because it's the Olympics. They bow to each other because it's martial arts.
It's true, but what I'm saying is,
I think you're right. I
think the Olympics and Britain was fighting Japan in martial arts or China, they'd still bow to each other.
They would, yeah.
So what I'm saying is,
they don't bow to each other in 100 metres show.
Yes.
Who is a former Olympian himself. Well, that's what I'm saying, because, again, every 4 years...
It has, because it happened at the Olympics. So we saw it at the Olympics, because one of the events in the Olympics had a code of honour. You see what I mean? Football has no code of honour.
In fact, it's not always true, is it? Code of dishonour.
Well, certainly code of dishonour. Even rugby has a bit of a code of honour with the old hacker.
Yeah, but even rugby is now kind of
Matthew's piece read thoroughly. I read all his stuff, and I really listened to talk to him, because actually, even a brain the size of Matthew's... But anyway,
he's a very clever man.
Doesn't really answer the question. He just examines the problem.
Right.
You know what I mean? To keep our listeners
but it's a snobbish thing, isn't it, really? Because the Olympians are seen as kind of
the heroes
and heroines. We'll tell them when they're coming back down the steps.
Olympic GB.
When they're going back up, 67 medals. Quite a haul. Is seen as still a kind of working class sport and full of jobs.
Some of that, but Matthew points out that Olympic athletes sometimes have to live by a code of honour. So, for instance, you know when you see the guys bow to each other before some of the martial arts, that is the code of honour within the sport.
But that's not an Olympic thing, though. That's a kind of Japanese thing, isn't it?
No, it's in the Olympics.
I know it's in the Olympics, but they don't bow to each other because it's the Olympics. They bow to each other because it's martial arts.
It's true, but what I'm saying is, if it wasn't the Olympics and Britain was fighting Japan in martial arts or China, they'd still bow to each other.
They would,
yeah. So what I'm saying is...
But they don't bow to each other in 100 metres, do they?
No, I didn't say they did.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's got nothing to do with the Olympics, then.
It has, because it happened at the Olympics.
Right.
So we saw it at the Olympics, because one of the events in the Olympics had a code of honour. Do you see what I mean?
I see what you
Football
mean.
has no code of honour.
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
Code of dishonour, in fact, you might say.
The code of dishonour. Even rugby has a bit of a code of honour with the old hacker from...
Yeah, but even rugby is now kind of fallen foul of what you might call good behaviour because of all the terrible things that have happened.
You might want to say that.
I will say that.
But anyway, it'll be fascinating talking to Matthew about that.
Things are running away from us because we're only here for 3 hours, you know.
Yeah, but we need to keep our listeners right up to date with the arrival back of the heroes. The heroes and heroines.
We'll tell them when they're coming back down the steps.
Of Olympic GB.
When they're going back up. 67 medals, quite a haul. Second in the Olympics after America. So, and a tremendous thing that they've done. We'll be keeping you updated on all that. We are the Two Mics.
You're listening to the Two Mics on TalkSport.
This is a repeated programme, so please don't call the show as you won't get through, but you still may be charged.
We are the Two Mics, coming up a little bit later on in the show. It's Ask Porky, of course. If you haven't experienced Ask Porky before, what you can do is send us a tweet at the Two Mics or to our Facebook page as well, and ask any question you like. It could be about finance, it could be about some personal matter, it could be about sort of romance. Could be about almost anything.
Anything.
The Porkmeister will answer your questions because he is here, of course, to help.
I will change your life, actually, because...
Quite a lot of people in the past have actually thanked you for your advice.
Oh, very much so, indeed, yeah. You know, all sorts of emotional problems, money problems, all that kind of stuff, but mostly decision problems. Like, for instance, should I go on the stag weekend or should I stay at home for my wife's mother's birthday? All this kind of stuff.
That kind of thing, yeah. So it's quite valuable information that you do give out, and it's all free, of course, absolutely free. Now, it looks as though they went back up into the plane to get their bags because they came down, I guess, for the picture, and they're now coming out looking like, you know, sort of ordinary passengers walking towards the terminal.
It looks, to be honest, it looks a little bit sort of chaotic at the moment. But
there doesn't seem to be anybody kind of marshalling them or telling them what to do.
No, it doesn't. But as they're all heroes and heroines, we forgive them for that. They've had a glorious month in overseas, winning things for this country. So we don't have any problems with them.
Also, you remember when you walk off a plane from a sort of transatlantic flight, you're not always completely there. Are you?
No, I totally agree. Particularly coming from South America as well.
Discombobulated.
South America's about 12, 13 hours, I would say.
I guess so, yeah.
To Rio.
To Rio de Janeiro.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So, I totally agree with you. Now then, I want to talk to you, please, about a fire brigade leaflet, which I've come across, right?
Okay. Did you get this through the door or something?
Yeah. Well, it didn't go through my door, it went through somebody else's door, and they showed it to me.
Okay.
It's quite ridiculous. But, I mean, the problem is that these things cost a lot of money to produce. I don't think it's London Fire Brigade. It just says, the fire authority is not quite sure.
So this would have come from the sort of PR department of the fire brigade or something?
Well, maybe, something like that. Or maybe even from the Home Office or something. I don't know who looks after fire.
And what is it, like advice on what to do if there's a fire?
It's advice, but what they're doing is they're actually... Somebody told me they got one handed to them after somebody rang the doorbell. It was a fire officer there and said, hello, we're just dishing out,
so they're wandering around door to door delivering these things?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, seriously. But it's, great big leaflet.
I thought they were always saying they didn't have enough firemen. Or fire people, I should say.
Well, the thing with fire and rescue is, which is a different subject altogether, but I can tell you, it's a complicated equation. They've got too many people to do some of the jobs they do and not enough people to do the others, if you see what I mean. Right. Because the fire and rescue service has evolved from the fire brigade,
yes,
you see what I mean?
It has.
And they have much more responsibility these days for many more things.
They do. Well, whenever there's a flood, they're the guys that come out and actually help you out. When my house was flooded, the firemen turned up and did a fantastic job.
That's right. And in some continental countries now, if you call for an ambulance, a fire engine turns up and they take you to hospital on the back of the fire engine.
On the back of a fire engine?
Yes, honestly, yeah. So
don't like the sound of that.
So I don't know whether they're evolving into that. But anyway, look, so they get the leaflet. Top tip number 1, do not cook if you are tired or have been drinking. And I thought, well, that really does apply to yourself.
Well, it does a bit, yeah, because I'm always tired and I have sometimes been drinking. So what are you supposed to do?
No, you've always been drinking.
Well, I haven't always been drinking. I mean, I might cook breakfast, for example, in which case I'm not in any kind of
a lot of the time, if we're doing shows into the early hours, you will arise about mid-morning or something like that.
I would say so.
Right, you will then start drinking
and
start
not true.
Cooking.
No, you see, that's not true. This is another fallacy that you're putting out there, trying to make out that I'm constantly drinking. I don't drink. When we were working on the overnight show, I would quite often not drink for an entire week.
What?
Why are you looking so shocked?
That's completely untrue.
It's not untrue.
It's completely untrue.
It is not untrue at all.
When I rang your doorbell in Mallorca, and you...
I was on holiday.
And you unexpectedly, I got lit up your life and that of your family for 24 hours, You had a glass of wine in your hand at 10:30 a.m.
No, you weren't there at 10:30.
I was.
No, you weren't. Your flight left London at, 7:30?
You
got there about midday, didn't you?
No. It's 2-hour flight, that's all. And with the time difference. Right. Okay, shortly after 10:30 then.
No, it was 12.
No. But anyway, you were definitely
Why
imbibing.
would you wish to spread these kind of lies about me?
Anyway, let me move on. I'm not spreading any lies about you. I'm just... It's a lifestyle thing.
No, but what I'm saying is there will be times if I go home in the evening and I cook and I'll have a glass of wine while I'm cooking, for example.
There you go. So you admit that.
Are they saying you shouldn't do that?
Of course you shouldn't, because A, you're tired and you might fall asleep over the cooker, right? Or secondly,
I've never done that.
Or secondly, because of your bladderation situation, that's another word for intoxication, right? You might get the judgment all wrong, and you might, for instance, leave the chips in the fat in the frying pan.
Yes, and in fact, in some parts of the world, chip pan fires are the main cause of house fires.
Oh, I totally agree.
But I haven't got a chip pan.
Okay, well in that case, it could be something else, but it could be.
Because,
anyway.
do you remember our good friend Bob Smith over in New York? He burned his house down because he put chips on when he came back from the pub one night and fell asleep in the conservatory.
Was that his loft?
No, this was in Long Island.
Oh, right,
after he moved out of New York, and he woke up to the sound of the battering of the fire engines and the firemen because the whole house was ablaze.
What, he fell asleep in where?
He fell asleep in his conservatory, forgetting that he put the chips on in the kitchen.
Because he was so intoxicated. Yeah. My God! And did he ruin the house?
He did, yeah.
Burnt it down.
He burnt it down.
Was he insured?
Yeah, I think they got some money for it, but they had to move out.
That's absolutely amazing because, our West Country correspondent at the Express, we came back from the pub at the bottom of his road one night, and we'd had a right night. We got in there about 5:30. This was about 2:30 in the morning because they have a lot of lock-ins in the country. Yes. And this was just outside Marlborough.
That's nearly 8 hours.
Yeah, that's right. Village outside Marlborough. And he came out. And we'd already had dinner in the pub anyway, but he had the urge, you sometimes get it, he had to have a pork chop. So we got into the lounge.
Put it under the grill.
Put it under the grill, absolutely right. So we got into the lounge and started pouring more drink, and we didn't fall asleep because I don't fall asleep in drink, believe it or not. I'm going to go. But then the smoke started coming under the door, you know what I mean?
He'd forgotten he put it on.
he'd completely forgotten.
Well, it's not a very good idea, is it, to cook when you're in that kind of condition?
At 3 a.m. Anyway.
Better off going for a kebab.
The problem was the smoke had already started going up the stairs. You know, he had like one of those windy cottage-style staircases, enclosed. And so he was in danger of suffocating his children. He had 2 children in the house, right? So we opened the door. What is it? And the whole kitchen was ablaze because the pork chop had caught fire. It was an eye-level grill. Right. You see what I mean? Not a waist-level grill.
So what did you do?
Well, I got a bucket of water and threw it over the grill and it went out. But, I mean, the whole of the kitchen wall was on fire.
Oh, dear.
Yeah, because it wasn't tiled or anything like that. It was like one of these...
But these are, I mean, if you were not a complete and utter idiot, you wouldn't need this kind of advice, would you?
Well, the thing is, they treat you like idiots. To tell you not to fall asleep while you're cooking is... Anyway, let me move on.
Yeah, go on.
Because it says the next one is people who smoke in bed... should consider investing in fire-retardant bed linen.
Fire-retardant bed linen? Where'd you get that from? The fire-retardant bed linen shop.
In fact, also, you should also make sure that you have fire-retardant nightwear. So if you're in pyjamas, it'll be like that.
Well, you shouldn't smoke in bed anyway.
Well, of course
you're more likely to fall asleep while you're in bed than you are actually while you're cooking.
Of course you shouldn't. I mean, what they should say here is never smoke in bed.
Yeah, exactly.
Instead of which they're giving allowances to people to smoke in bed. But I mean, that fire-retardant nightwear, that reminds me of the Batman sketch, when the Joker... or the Riddler, one of the two.
Is this the old sort of the old TV show?
The very first one, the very first Batman show in the sort of 60s, 70s was repeated a couple
with
of
Adam
years
West.
ago. Alan West and...
Adam West.
Adam West,
Not
you're
Alan
right.
West.
No, Adam West, you're absolutely right. You know, the Boy Wonder, Batman the Boy Wonder. And you're absolutely right. And it was repeated a few years ago, and I'd forgotten how ridiculous they were. Ridiculously good, actually.
It was so bad it was good, yeah.
So bad it was good. And the Riddler or the Joker gets Batman and Robin, and he bundles them off into a net, and then he lowers them into a vat of acid,
Of course.
And that's the end of one episode.
Right.
Now, at the start of the next episode... Batman and Robin are climbing out of the vat of acid, and Batman turns
remarkably having saved themselves.
yeah. Right. And Batman turns to Robin and says, "Thank goodness, Robin, we put on our acid-proof underwear today." Which is brilliant. Yeah. So that's the sort of stuff you need. So
don't smoke in bed. Don't fall asleep over the cooker.
Well, hang on. Don't smoke in bed, and make sure you've got fireproof sheets and pajamas. Right. But then the third one. I mean, this does apply.
Why don't you just buy fireproof clothes? I mean, why don't you just stop at pyjamas? Just buy everything fireproof.
Third one, this does apply to you. Do not use a barbecue indoors.
Right, well, I wouldn't do that.
But use a barbecue,
What sort of idiot would do that?
I don't know, but you use a barbecue.
Well, I have heard stories of people who, when it started raining,
take it indoors.
They take it inside.
Exactly what I'm saying.
That is really idiotic,
yeah,
though.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah,
you'd have to be complete and utter sort of plonker to do that.
Yeah, you would, yeah. But anyway, that's the advice we're given. And that, of course, is the nanny state.
So you're basically telling me all this because you think that I'm sort of guilty of doing all of these things, right?
I think they touch on your life. They touch you cook at home, right?
Yes.
No problem with that. You drink at home when you're cooking?
I do.
No problem with that. You smoke?
I smoke at home, but I don't smoke in bed, though.
No, I can accept that you probably don't, because, that's something that I find a bit difficult to accept. And you have barbecues.
I do.
Yeah, so there you go.
And what about when you used to put your Chinese food in the oven, fall asleep, and then wake up and it was all kind of melted and glued together?
Well, you couldn't get it out because the containers from the Chinese takeaway were plastic.
Right.
And the problem was...
And they melt, don't they?
Well, they'd moulded together. The lid had moulded to the container. It was all bent. So there was loads of nice Chinese food keeping warm, but you couldn't get it out of the...
Well, you could have just cut it with scissors, couldn't you?
But it was so tough. It was almost impossible to do that. Nor, as I remember, it was very, very hot.
Also, you might be eating molten plastic or something.
No, I could tell plastic from beef mushroom and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Who was the pop star who died when he was intoxicated and he was having a cigarette on his couch, fell asleep. The cigarette fell onto the couch, which wasn't flame-proof. Right. The whole cottage, some of these pop stars live in cottages in the country. Was it somebody from Small Faces? Steve?
Don't know. I don't know. Don't remember that story. Were you thinking of Steve? Was it Steve McClacken or something like that? Ian McClacken?
Wasn't Stevie Winwood, was it?
No, it certainly wasn't him.
No, it wasn't Stevie Winwood. So, Stevie, if you're listening, sorry, you're just floating, just thinking aloud.
No, Stevie Winwood's fine.
Yeah, and didn't the guy, he was the lead singer with Sweet, blonde-haired guy.
Brian somebody.
Yeah, Brian somebody. Yeah. Didn't they have the same problem as well?
I don't think so.
I think he might have
I don't think you should keep killing off these people who are not dead.
Well, no, exactly.
I don't think it go down well.
No, I think it's a good idea not to.
Anyway, coming up, we're going to be talking to Lembit Opik very shortly. He's, of course, the former Lib Dem MP. I think he's trying his hand at a bit of stand-up comedy. He's tried his hand at quite a few things. Now that he's no longer
stand-up comedy in Edinburgh, which is where you and I are heading for after the show on Friday.
Exactly right. They haven't found him particularly, shall we say, good.
Well, I think we should talk to the boy. I'm not getting into critical mode. I want to talk to the boy and find out exactly what the challenge is. And
he might have some tips for us.
Yeah, exactly, how he's addressing it, yeah.
OK, excellent. Well, we'll be doing that very, very shortly. Ask Porky coming up a bit later on as well.
You're listening to the Two Mics on TalkSport.
This is a repeated programme, so please don't call the show as you won't get through, but you still may be charged.
I'm Mike Graham. He, of course, is Mike Parry. Ask Porky coming up a little bit later. Gav has tweeted to us and said, I think you're thinking about Steve Marriott.
Steve Marriott, that's the
boy.
That's the boy.
Might well indeed be the guy.
Thank you very much.
A tragic story.
It was a tragic story.
We've got some very interesting Ask Porkies coming in, actually, because all covering things like sport, covering things like social graces, manners. If you want to send something in, what you've got to do is tweet it at the Two Mics or send it into our Facebook page. Roy says Debbie is Liam Gallagher's missus as well as his PA.
I see. So it's the same lady.
Apparently, it's the same lady.
Okay, well, that's great.
So that's good. So he doesn't actually have an army of people. He has his missus taking care of it all.
Exactly. Well,
which must be difficult, actually. Because,
I agree.
People who have those kind of relationships, their spouse works for them. I mean, a lot of MPs do it, of course. They employ,
of course they do.
Either members of their family. It's quite tricky, I would have thought. I mean, have you ever employed a member of your family to do anything for you?
Yes.
Have you?
Yes.
Successfully or not?
Well,
because it can turn a bit sort of tricky, can't it?
Yeah, it can turn tricky. On the basis of not formally but casually. Yes. You see what I mean?
But that's when it becomes even more difficult, because if they're not kind of working for you as somebody who would normally be paid a salary, they you can't really push them around, can you?
Well, I mean, for instance, it's no secret your daughter comes with us on our tours, theatres and that kind of stuff. She's coming to Edinburgh with us and all that kind of stuff. So, but in that sense, I mean, she's not just part of your family; she's part of our production unit.
She is, yeah,
and that's not a problem.
Unfortunately, she does it very well. But if she didn't do it very well, it might become a bit sort of difficult to tell her, to sharpen up her act.
I mean, I've got a great success story, really, because my nephew, Tom, right, when YouTube first started and all that, he was the one who said to me, we should do some videos on
Oh, this is your YouTube channel?
Yeah,
which you still highlight on your Twitter page.
I know, I should get rid of that, shouldn't I?
People keep saying, why do you not mention me on your Twitter page?
Well, I think I don't have to change it, but we'll perhaps do that after the show today.
We should do that,
yeah. But anyway, the point of the story is, he said, look, I watch a lot of YouTube stuff from America. Yeah. And there was one group of guys at university who gave up university altogether, there were 4 of them, after they started making videos of extreme eating.
Uh-huh.
Now,
what you mean, like 25 hamburgers in an hour or something like that?
Sandwiches with 16 layers of bread and stuff in them.
Right.
I mean, unbelievable, honestly.
And just filmed themselves eating it?
Yes. Yeah, and making it. You know, like in the kitchen, making it and all that kind of cooking. And then, racing to eat it, to beat each other and all this kind of... They made they've been millionaires of themselves out of it. It was unbelievable, yeah.
Well, some of these guys on YouTube, I mean, my kids watch these, YouTubers and these kind of vloggers, as they're called. Yes. And they make an absolute fortune. Some of them are now going around the world on a sort of world tour, and they sell out venues the size of kind of almost the O2 down by the river.
What do they do?
Well, they basically just film themselves doing stuff. And they just talk about absolute nonsense. I sometimes watch it and I go, I don't understand this at all.
No, but young kids do.
But, my 12-year-old's laughing, rolling about, going, this guy's great. And you're watching it kind of going, well, he's not really doing anything.
Well, these guys... Now, what I have to say is that they cottoned on very early to get a slick production unit, you see what I mean? So, one minute, there's a guy very fast dicing carrots in the kitchen, and then they flash to some other bloke over there who's curing the lamb or something.
But you can see how that could be kind of vaguely entertaining.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
But a lot of these guys who've got millions and millions of followers on YouTube and make a fortune, I just sit there and really don't do anything at all.
No, I know, it's strange. I don't know why we can't attract people to watch what we're doing.
We can, but I mean, just not in the millions.
Yeah, well, maybe. I mean, for instance, we're going to film us doing Ask Porky Day, aren't we?
Yes, we are.
And that'll
go out live on Periscope and also on Facebook as well.
And what time will that be? About
I'm not sure.
12?
About 12:30,
About 12:30. And then we'll invite people, if they want to pick it up and see it, it'll be on our TV channel, won't it?
It will, yeah. We'll put put it out there later.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Anyway, the point of my story is, so my nephew Tom said to me, I was down at my sister's place in Bournemouth, where he then lived. He doesn't now. He's made his way in the world. He said, the thing is, Uncle Mike, he says, the current one we're watching at uni at the moment is the Cinnamon Challenge.
Right.
I said, what's that? He said, oh, well, you put a spoonful of cinnamon in your mouth. And I said...
Try and swallow it.
Yeah, I said, so what? I said, that wouldn't bother me at all. He said, well, why don't we try it? So he advised...
And had he done it before himself?
No, and he advised me not to look at any previous people who'd done it.
Right.
Because he wanted me just to have the raw...
it is one of the funniest videos I've ever seen.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So we got out into the garden. It was a lovely day and all that. And then I just did the talk-up, as though I was dismissive of all this.
Right.
And then the rest is history, because it's had 25 million hits.
It has, yeah.
And
people keep nicking it, actually, which is part of the problem.
Yeah, they do, which is a bit of a nuisance, because we keep asking them to pay us for it, but they keep saying, get lost.
Well, that's one of the problems of, YouTube and everything. I mean, technically you own it, but actually you can't really stop anybody from putting it onto their website and then getting all the hits.
You can't. But anyway, so...
inexplicably, you're wearing a Canada T-shirt as well.
Yeah, well, that's because... I'll tell you why. Because when I first got going and all that, the cinnamon got all over the place,
right.
And I had a light shirt on,
right.
And it got into it. It's like soot cinnamon, you know what I mean?
It's terrible.
It's not like salt that you can rub off your shirt. It's like soot, so it got all brown.
Well, that's the problem with putting it in your mouth.
Exactly.
It forms a sort of solid mass, doesn't it?
A barrier in your mouth. You're absolutely right. And so I said, why were we talking about this, by the way?
I don't know.
We were talking about videos because we said that these bloggers and vloggers and all that get these like 25 million hits and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I was telling you about that. Yes. Members of our family working for us.
So did you pay him when he filmed that?
No. So he just said, I'll do it for you. So he did it, and then he processed it, and then he sent it to me, and then we put it on, first of all, my, Porky Parry YouTube.
Right.
And then, of course, we put it on...
Now it's on Tue Aug's TV. It's also been on Joe. It's also been on Facebook.
Yes.
Various, the Lad Bible, I think, have picked it up.
World's Funniest Videos.
World's Funniest Videos,
so it's on that one. So that's working with the family, and for as far as I'm concerned, it's been quite successful. But I admit it can give you a problem. Now, talking about this sort of thing, about making and breaking relationships, right?
Yes.
There is a new problem entering into the breaking relationships. Now, when your marriage sadly split up, and I say sadly because, of course, you've got two lovely children.
Yes, it was quite sad at the time, yeah.
Of course it was sad.
I hope you're not going to try and make light of it.
I'm not going to make light of it, but knowing you and having known you for so many years, you're not the emotional sort of guy who would sit there and start burning the wedding pictures, right?
No.
However,
well, in fact, I don't have any wedding pictures.
No, exactly. However, your former wife could get emotional about those sort of things.
She threw her wedding ring into the River Avon.
Oh, right, okay. Is it
she
still there?
She had to drive quite some distance to do it as well, so it was like a deliberate act. Oh, well, I assume it's still there.
I mean, you're never going to dive it to rescue her.
No, why would I do that?
Well, I thought she might. I don't know. But anyway, I thought that she might sort of be in the business of, tearing up a few wedding pictures and
I think there might have been a bit of that, yeah.
And all that kind of stuff. Now, the problem is these days, you've got a real issue to deal with, because what this story is all about, and this comes from a study at Lancaster University,
right.
is that if you started the romance today, all those pictures and emails would all be electronic.
They're all digital, yeah.
They're all digital, electronic. Right. And emotionally, you cannot wipe away, the huge emotional involvement of a relationship by just clicking a button and getting rid of the pictures.
Well, you can, though. You can just delete them all, can't you?
Yes, you can, but you don't... You see what I mean? The animal instinct is you don't get the same satisfaction as you get ripping up wedding pictures.
Yeah, no, that's true.
And all that kind of stuff.
Also, the problem will be that some of the pictures will be sort of shared on some kind of cloud.
They've gone all over the place. They'll always be recoverable.
And you might be, say, locked out of the cloud. You can't actually see them anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. A study with psychiatrists and their patients about methods people use in the physical world.
Patients?
Yeah.
Well, who are they asking?
Well, they've been to psychiatrists to say, why does this happen?
Oh, okay.
And they say, well, when people break up, they have to have a closure, a finality. Yeah. And you're absolutely right in what you just said. You can delete every picture you've got. You can delete every email and all that. But the point is, that email will have been replied to. Yeah. And then so it'll always be in existence.
It'll always be somewhere. I mean, how many times have we been told over the years that, every single email that you send is stored somewhere, whether it's in Switzerland or whether it's in some bank in, America somewhere. There is always a copy of it. You can always get it back.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. And for instance... patients now have been reported to going to see psychiatrists and going mad because they can't cleanse themselves of a former relationship. So, for instance, one woman who had 2 relationships, the first one, when it all ended, she burnt everything in terms of, hard copy letters, pictures, threw it all away. And any artefacts that she had, so gifts from her former boyfriend, she buried. She went out into the country to a quarry, found a quarry and buried them, right?
She sounds a bit bitter and twisted.
A bit bitter and twisted. In the second relationship, a few years later, when it was all online, all that, she...
What, did she bury the computer?
Well, no, because even that wouldn't stop it, would it? It'd be in somebody else's system, somewhere else. And you can't get away from it.
But so how does that affect people differently then? Does it mean that they can't actually then get over it? Is that the point?
They can't put a closure and a finality on a relationship because existence of that relationship is always there. You see what I mean?
So have you got a collection of photographs from your kind of past relationships that you've kept? Or
well, I'll tell you what, the funny thing is, if I've thought about this a few times over the last few years, if I ever did write my life story, not sure anybody would ever buy it, but I mean...
Well, they might do.
Maybe. It
would depend on how much you could remember, a bit like the Alan Brazil scenario.
Well, that's true, yeah.
And how much you would embroider.
No, I wouldn't embroider anything. There's too many witnesses to my life to embroider anything. But the point I'm making is that I've got fantastic file of pictures, some of which we use in our show, like my pictures with Trudy when I was sort of 19 and something like that. Right up.
So, they're all in a shoebox or something?
No, they're in a folder, actually, in one of my wall units.
Wall units?
Yes.
Okay.
I've got a picture of myself as a student at the University of Trent.
I don't think I've seen that.
No, well,
maybe you should produce it.
Maybe. But anyway, the point of the story is I've got hard copy pictures right up to, I would say, there's some of them when we started at Talk Sport. I would say up to about 10 years ago.
10, 15 years ago was when digital pictures started to become the thing.
And ever since then, whenever you take a picture, I've always, funny enough, I was at a family do last weekend. It was a family birthday party. And I said, somebody will send me some pictures, won't they? Because, just like out of habit.
Right.
But, of course, nobody ever sends me any pictures anymore because they're all digital.
Yeah, but they can still send them to you.
They do, but then I like to have something I can, open the drawer and look at, on a sunny afternoon or something like that.
Well, you can get them printed out if you can be bothered. You can actually send them to a service that will do that.
But it's a long palaver to get all that done these days.
I was explaining to one of my kids when we were over in Mallorca, actually. I said, in the old days, you used to come back from holiday, you used to put the film into the chemist.
Absolutely.
And you have to go back about 3 days later in the hopes that they'd actually not ruined the film and you could print them out.
And it was terribly exciting, wasn't it? Look at the pictures. Look at that, and all that. But here's an explanation here. Just closing down a computer and actually deleting the images and the words that you've sent to your partner might work for an amicable, get this, Gwyneth Paltrow-style conscious uncoupling.
Yes.
Or even...
Nobody really believes that anything like that is real.
No, exactly.
There is no such thing as an amicable split.
Yeah, or even for the sad loss of a loved one, that, has died and you can't bear the memories or something like that. But... it would not have sufficient energy to close the relationship and to dissipate the anger of a particularly virulent situation where you'd fallen on both sides, and therefore you'll be haunted for the rest of your life by those images because you fear they might pop up again.
And also there's things like Facebook where, you'd have to block people and you'd have to try not to, because sometimes you see things on Facebook that you don't necessarily want to see.
That's right.
People that you used to know that you'd rather not know
exactly.
anymore. But they keep popping up in front of you.
And now it's on Facebook, right? Because I don't do Facebook, but I see exactly what you mean.
Well, you get things like, people you may know. And you go, well, I do know them, but actually I don't want to be their friend because I don't like them.
Yeah, I see. Yeah.
So stop throwing them up in front of me.
Yeah.
You see the time, by the way.
No, just one very quickly. The equivalent to tearing up a letter in rage, because that apparently is the ultimate one. You really want to think that? Bang! You say, that's right. I'm finished with you and all that. Is to smash up your computer.
Yes.
But A, it's very expensive, and B, it doesn't get you anywhere.
But it's probably quite cathartic, though.
It's quite cathartic, but you haven't destroyed the actual content of the information.
Right. I get that.
Or you haven't destroyed the existence of the information.
But it's the feeling of smashing I think that will help you.
Yeah.
Well, we'll talk more about that coming up a little bit later on, because next we're going to talk to Lembit Opik. He's a former Lib Dem MP, of course. He's tried a lot of different careers, and he's now starring in some show up at Edinburgh at the festival, but he's been given some rather bad reviews. I'm going to find out from him what it's all about. Coming up next.
You're listening to the Two Mics on Talk Sport.
This is a repeated programme, so please don't call the show as you won't get through, but you still may be charged.
we are the Two Mics. We're off to Edinburgh on Friday because we're doing 3 shows up there. But I hope we don't get treated like Mr. Lembit Opik has been treated.
Well, he's a good guy, Lembit. I've known him a few years, and he's a very honest and open guy, and he's self-deprecating. He knows that life can have its twists and turns. But
he has been served up a few kind of surprises over his life. But according to Lloyd Evans in The Spectator, he apparently has put on this show called Rocking Your Vote, or he's taking part in what is called a musical satire, right? And this guy, Lloyd Evans in The Spectator, says it's ill-focused and short of sophistication. He says word of mouth seems to have hit the box office. On the night I attended, the 4 thespians on stage outnumbered the crowd by 2 to 1.
So there were 2 people in the crowd?
Yes.
My God.
That's not good, is it?
Well, I mean,
if we turned up to perform somewhere and there was only 2 people there, I think I know they'd be bothered. We'd just invite them up on the stage and say, well, I'll tell you what, we're not going to do a show. We'll just
share the drink
and have a drink. Do you remember when we did Hen and Chickens one time? There was a show coming up after ours, which had to be cancelled because there was only 3 people that actually arrived to go and see it.
We actually did a show another time. We did a late show once, 9:30, and the show before had 6 people watching it.
Yeah, but they were actually, it went ahead, though.
Yeah, it went ahead.
Whereas the one that only had 3,
they cancelled it, which is a bit of a shame, really.
Mm.
But, I mean, look, it's all a learning curve for us, isn't it? It's going to be very exciting.
It is.
And the excitement, I think, of Edinburgh is not only that we're going to be taking part in the... Are we taking part in the Fringe or the festival?
It's the festival, technically. I mean, there's lots of things going on at the same time. They have the film festival, and then they have the Fringe festival, and then they also have the Edinburgh Festival. So it all kind of rolls into one.
Okay, fine. But, I mean, we're going to be taking part. Now... The returns on ticket sales so far are very encouraging.
They are good, yeah.
I think we're playing in a 300-seater auditorium, aren't we?
Something like that, yeah.
And I think we're getting close to...
It's the Assembly Studio 1.
Assembly Studio 1, okay. Where's that then?
Well, it's right in the middle of the heart of sort of the festival area.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
And we're hoping, actually, to put out a live broadcast here on Talk Radio, I think, on Saturday
We certainly
night.
are. We certainly are. We're working on that, so we'll see if we can get that sorted. But it's not just performing there. It's great to have been invited because you feel that, you've been recognised then as a decent act, you've got some credibility.
Right.
But the number of people that I'm hoping to meet up there who are in our business, when I say our business, I mean the communications business, the entertainment business,
the media business,
the comedy business and all that kind of stuff is going to be really revelatory to me.
So where are you going to meet all these people, though? You're just going to sort of wander around?
Yes.
You might bump into them.
Yes.
I mean, I've done the Edinburgh Festival a few times, sometimes kind of appearing in various people's shows, or sometimes just kind of covering bits of it.
Yes.
And you do walk into pubs and suddenly there's a guy from Channel 4, there's another guy over here from the BBC.
I'm going to do all of that. I mean, our shows are at peak time. They're 11 o'clock at night.
Is that peak time?
Absolutely peak time.
It's going to be tricky, that, for us, isn't it? 11 o'clock
It's peak time because that's when the pubs generally close at 11 o'clock.
Yeah, not in Edinburgh.
Well, no, but I mean, what I'm saying is in normal life.
Do you think that will mean the crowd will be a bit rowdy?
I hope so. I hope they'll be rowdy. I hope they'll be full of drink. I hope they'll be bladderated. I hope they'll give us a lot of stick.
Apparently there is a bar somewhere inside the venue as well.
Bound to be. And what I'm saying is, it'll be a great test of our mettle. It'll be a great test of our will and ability to deal with hecklers and that kind of stuff. But more than anything else, it will,
And to maintain our kind of compos mentis natures all the way through the day and into the night. So
this
when
is precisely what I'm saying.
You'll have to get some kind of sleep regimen organised as well, so you sleep at the right time.
I was a little shocked to find out we've already been invited to what you might call a raucous dinner on Friday.
On Friday, when we get up there, Well, that's kind of welcome to Edinburgh.
Yeah, it is,
dinner.
but that's before we even get on the stage at 11 o'clock.
Right.
Now, I have to measure myself in these things, and I think you can actually...
Are you going to absent yourself from that then?
I'm going to absent myself from some of it, but I will rejoin it maybe with an hour to go to get myself into the frame of mind to appear on stage. Because despite what people say, if you're on stage and you're full of intoxicating fluid...
Yes.
It can add a little bit to your confidence, but it takes away from your thought pattern.
Well, there's a balance, isn't there? You have to get it right.
Yes. And I, once or twice when I've sort of over-relaxed before a live show, I've found myself
also we
struggling
drink during the show, so
we do.
It can get worse as the second half appears. But we're not doing a second half this time. We're just doing 1 hour.
We're doing 1 hour, which
that's quite short.
It just whoosh, it just fly by, and then time for bladderation afterwards at 12 o'clock or something.
Now we were supposed to be talking to Lembit Opik about this, but we can't get hold of him. Do you think he's kind of decided not to do it?
No,
he's decided he doesn't want to talk about it.
No, not at all. We're all busy lives, all that kind of stuff, or he might be in a place with no signal, all that kind of stuff. I do remember once we talked to Lembit when he was on top of Snowdon, Mount Snowdon. And I can't remember what we were talking to him about, but it was something to do with politics. He was still an MP in those days.
Well, he was into sort of extraterrestrial beings, wasn't he?
Oh, that's right.
He was very much the guy who was interested in what's coming out of space.
He might have been up the mountain for that purpose.
Looking at the sky.
Yeah, that's what they do.
Yeah.
And we said, do you still carry a harmonica around with you? And he said, yeah, can you get out and give us a tune? And he gave us a tune over his mobile phone from the top of
He is quite a
Stonehenge.
character. I mean, he won't be bothered by this at all, I wouldn't have thought, because people have been giving him a hard time for everything that he's done over
I saw him
decades.
in this very building about a month ago. I'm sure I did. Yeah, and I didn't recognise him because he's had like cranial surgery to his face. You know, he always had that sort of slight drift towards the right-hand side of his mouth.
Oh, right.
You know, which gave him a sort of
very distinctive look.
Distinctive look. That's right. But apparently that was due to some nerve damage suffered as a child. And
so he's had that fixed.
He had it fixed, and so I didn't immediately recognise him. Then I did, and I said, "Hello, how you doing?" That kind of stuff. But you know, the guy will get on in life because he's an all-round good egg.
No, he is. And I think the last time I talked to him in Talk Sports Studios, he was about to embark on a career as a stand-up comedian. So I don't know whether this is part of that or whether this is something different.
No, he did that, and I think I saw some footage of him trying it out. It's the hardest job in the world.
It's a really hard job.
Being a stand-up comedian on your own. Hardest job in the world.
Telling jokes and expecting people to laugh, because haven't they released a bunch of jokes at the Edinburgh?
Yes, they have.
At the Edinburgh Festival.
Yes,
which is normally won by Tim Vine, isn't it?
It's normally won by Tim Vine, but this year it hasn't been. I've got a collection of them here, right? And I'm going to get them out. And
but they're the sort of things that I look at or hear somebody say, and they kind of don't really ever make me laugh.
Right.
You know? Well, if you're sitting in an audience with a stand-up comedian, and we'll be talking to loads of them here on Talk Radio over the course of the next couple of weeks, and basically, if you just kind of come out with a line, come out with a joke, it's not really funny, is it?
Well, the top joke this year is this. It comes from Masai Graham, right?
Masai,
as in Masai warrior. You know, Masai Graham.
No relation.
No relation. He is half Jamaican and half Welsh. And of course he's got your surname, Masai Graham. Although
that's why I said no relation.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Did that go over your head?
No, I thought you meant to the Masai tribe.
No,
I
meant to the Graham tribe.
Yes, okay, yeah. Right. Well, obviously you're Celtic, but from the Scottish.
Maybe I'll have
Celtic.
to look him up when I get up there.
Yeah. Anyway, Masai Graham.
What's his joke?
His joke was, my dad suggested I register for a donor card. He's a man after my own heart.
You see, that doesn't make me laugh.
Well, I think it's
all right.
I think it's pleasant. I think it's pleasant, right? Now, some of the others are this one, Mark Smith. Apparently, 1 in 3 Britons is conceived in an IKEA bed. That's mad, because those places are usually really well lit.
No, that's not bad. I don't mind that one.
Okay.
Don't mind that one.
You know the one about Americans and Canadians?
No.
I often confuse Americans and Canadians by using long words.
Ah,
right.
Okay.
See, bit of a stinging one.
Yeah.
Right, this one
that's a bit xenophobic, that one, isn't it?
Well, it is a bit,
Possibly.
I suppose. Gary Delaney, that was. Tiff Stevenson says, Brexit is a terrible name. It sounds like cereal you eat when you're constipated. I think I've heard that a few times, actually, over the last few months.
But see, none of these are making me laugh out loud, are
they? No, they're not, no. Now, this one, let me see. This is Will Duggan.
Right.
No, this is not going to cause a problem because it's a bit anti-Scouse-ish,
right?
Is it? So it's I don't really understand it. It says, I went to a pub quiz in Liverpool, had a few drinks, so wasn't much use. Just for a laugh, I wrote the Beatles or Stephen Gerrard for every answer. I came second.
Right. Well, that's not really anti-Scouse, but it's not particularly funny either.
Well, I just don't understand it.
No.
I mean, if it had said the Beatles or Cilla Black, or, you know, or the Beatles or...
Well, why not the Beatles or Stephen Gerrard? They're all from Liverpool, right?
Or the Beatles or Liverpool FC or something. Yeah. But why pick on Stephen Gerrard?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well,
I suppose he's the most famous Liverpool player of the last 20 years.
I suppose so. I don't think you need to analyse the joke too much.
No, but Kenny Dalglish would have been better, to be honest.
No, but he's not from Liverpool.
No, but he played for Liverpool.
No,
for
I think you missed the point of the joke. The joke is about Liverpudlians.
Okay,
isn't it?
Yeah, I think you're right. Right, Adele Cliff told this joke. Why is Henry's wife covered in tooth marks?
Who's Henry?
Well, this is the question. Right. Why is Henry's wife covered in tooth marks?
I don't know. Why?
Because he's Tudor.
All right.
Tudor King. Right. Tudor King. Right?
I mean, these are jokes that my 12-year-old would probably think were funny.
Exactly. Jordan Brooks says, "Is it possible?"
I've seen the time, by the way.
Hang on. Is it possible to mistake schizophrenia for telepathy? I hear you ask.
No, too deep for me.
Well, no, you know, I mean, you're thinking in your head, and I'm telepathic.
No, I know, you don't have to explain it. I still don't think any of them are really that funny, though.
And the last one, Elton John hates ordering Chinese food. Soya seems to be the hardest word.
Yeah.
I've heard that before.
No.
Years ago.
Don't like it.
Yeah.
Don't like it.
No, okay.
Okay. Well, we'll come up with some better ones, perhaps, and maybe people can send in some better ones, actually. You can tweet us at the Two Mics. You can send it into Facebook. It's Ask Porky later on, of course, as well.
You're listening to the Two Mics on TalkSport.
This is a repeated programme, so please don't call the show, as you won't get through, but you still may be charged.
Good morning, I'm Mike Graham, he's Mike Parry, you're listening to the Two Mics. Coming up in this hour, we're going to be talking about the Isle of Muck, Mr. Parry, because they're looking for a teacher there. It's a very, very small island, there's not much going on there, but the teacher that is there is apparently leaving, and they need to try and find somebody to fulfil the position, so that's going to be very interesting. Also, coming up a bit later, it's Ask Porky, of course. If you haven't ever experienced getting problems solved by Mr. Parry live on air, now's the time to do it. You can tweet us at the Two Mics, or you can post it on Facebook as well. You're listening to the Two Mics with me, Mike Graham, and Mike Parry on Talk Radio.
Across the UK, online and on DAB.
The Two Mics on Talk Radio. We'll get you talking.
Now, we have also been watching the arrival of the Olympic heroes and heroines, as you called them earlier. There was a bit of a sort of strange thing that happened when they came off the plane and went back on, and then came off with their bags. So they're all kind of now going, I guess it must be difficult to come back from something like that and kind of return to what would be considered a normal life.
Well,
I mean, have you ever been in a position where you've had some great triumph and you've had to come back and try and settle down and pretend that life is not actually changed that much?
Well, I think maybe the biggest contrast to that was when you've done 2 or 3 years in America as a newspaper correspondent.
Yes.
I mean, you had your own business there, so you were...
And I was there for nearly 10 years.
You were there for 10 years. I came back after 3 years, and all of a sudden you land back in England. You're in a different country.
Yeah.
But it's a different country to the one you left 3 years ago.
Absolutely.
So much has moved on and moved forward.
Yeah.
And your aspirations in life have moved up massively.
Oh, completely changed.
Completely changed, because in America, the standard of living is much, much higher.
It is. And you also get used to better service. You get used to getting things immediately when you ask for them. And people then immediately assume that you've become some kind of, rude slob, really.
Exactly. Everything works in America. So even in the 80s, when you were off to the airport, whichever one it was, you just rang the office and said, I need a car, please, in 20 minutes. And when you walked out your door...
And it wasn't ridiculously expensive, so you could do it.
No, when you walked out the door, the car was waiting in the road... And the driver never spoke to you.
Right.
You got in the car, he took you to the airport.
And you gave him a little chit, didn't you?
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Or sometimes, actually, towards the end, they did have them little screens which gave them directions to where they were going, all that kind of stuff, And then when you got to the airport, you checked in a matter of minutes and you got through and you were on the plane and all that kind of stuff. And service in
restaurants... And suddenly you came back to London and to discover that actually... One thing that hadn't changed was the fact that, you walked into a pub. I remember coming back from once on a visit and I walked into a pub after I'd been out for dinner. Yeah. And I said, I quite fancy a brandy. What sort of brandy have you got? Yeah. And he went, and he just pointed to the one bottle of Martell that was sort of up there in the Optic. And I said, have you got anything else? Yeah. He went, what, is that not good enough for you? Yeah. And I said, well, actually, I'd quite like a Hennessy XO. He said, we haven't got that here.
Exactly.
And I just walked out. Yeah, and I thought, well, I'm never coming back.
That's the expectation of living in Manhattan, of course. But I think the biggest example of that to me was trying to order a gin and tonic in a London pub. Because, of course, when you get a gin and tonic, I used to drink Tanqueray and tonic in a bar in Manhattan. It's a work of art. Yeah. I mean, it's a
it comes in a great big tumbler, and they call you the equivalent of about 5 measures.
Big tumbler, about 5 measures, tumbling ice, lovely big blocks of ice in it. Either a squeeze of a twist of lemon or a twist of lime, and it fizzes and it looks like a proper drink. You come back here and it's minute glass. I said, I'll have a large gin and tonic, please. Could barely get the gin in it. Right. Then they plonk a warm bottle of tonic water down next to it. And you actually have to say, have you got any ice, please?
Yeah, and then they give you 1 cube. They still do that some places.
One very thin cube,
And look at you very strangely if you say, can I have more ice, please?
Yeah, exactly. More ice, please, and all that kind of stuff. So that was the biggest, the biggest change for me. But, I mean, I've sometimes come back from jobs. I mean, when... the famous story about the Americans bombing me in Tripoli, very dangerous, and then being...
Well, you say famous, it's only because you keep repeating it over and over again to try and get sympathy from the audience.
People always ask me about it, and then the Libyans threatened to deport us to Syria, believe it or not. Although Syria was a far more civilised country in those days than it is now, it still wasn't a very pleasant place to go.
Well, it was better than Libya, though.
Oh, much... well, I'm not sure it was. I'd never been there, so I don't know. I'd never been inside a Syrian jail. But anyway... It was the last flight out of Tripoli Airport, literally, Lufthansa to Frankfurt. just about got on it. So that was quite a relief.
That was quite a relief, I imagine. But for these guys coming back, they have to kind of just go back to... I presume they'll probably start training, the ones who are going to be training for the next Olympics.
Yeah,
because, it doesn't really stop, does it?
I was going to say 20 years ago, when Olympians came back with the gold medals, 2 days off and they'd be back at work, literally, because some of them were like
proper
policemen.
Amateurs.
Some were like policemen, but boxers or policemen, but rowers or something, or firemen.
But we were talking about this yesterday, and you were saying some of the funding is ridiculously high, and sort of 38 million here, 60 million there for the canoeists and all that.
But
I mean, because they're being funded to such an extent, presumably they're effectively employed, so they actually have to go back to work.
Yes, that's right. Absolutely, absolutely. What will happen now is, of course, because they've done so incredibly well, unfortunately, we haven't had any disciplinary problems within our squad, like the Americans have. I mean, the Americans' country has been shamed.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely shamed. When you see the New York Post run a picture of a gold medal winning hero on the front and calling him the biggest louse in the world,
Which is the only real coverage actually the Olympics has got, because in America they don't really take it that seriously unless it's actually in America.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, when you were there in Atlanta, how much coverage was it getting as far as the kind of American media was concerned? Probably more than it would get if it was in London or in Rio, right?
Yeah, but still not a huge amount, you know what I mean?
Well, do you remember the last one in 2012 when NBC bought the rights to it? Most of it they didn't actually put on at all.
Is that right?
They put it online.
The London one?
Yeah, the London one. Yeah, most people didn't actually see most of it at all.
No, it doesn't surprise me. But what I was going to say is the huge debate now will start about, look at how magnificent these Olympians are, gold medals, come back, aren't they fantastic people? And they'll start comparing them to footballers.
Yes.
It always happens.
Yeah.
And
also give them all gongs, there's already calls for knighthoods all over the place and all that. I mean, what do you give Sir Bradley Wiggins? What else can you give him?
Well, exactly. He's already got one, hasn't he?
Yeah.
But I mean, if that's the case then,
Do you make him Lord Wiggins?
Well, maybe. Doesn't Wayne Rooney deserve a knighthood then?
Why?
Because he's our...
No, but he hasn't won anything, though.
He has.
As an Englishman.
He's our record-achieving footballer.
Yes, but he hasn't
More
actually...
goals.
Yeah, if he won the World Cup, maybe. But he hasn't won the World Cup.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. But, I think it's so difficult to compare the lives of footballers with athletes. Athletes were brought up in an iron discipline code.
Yeah.
They only really have to compete once every 4 years.
Well, that's not really true, because there's international events going on all the time.
All right.
Athletics.
All right. Most they compete in is once a year. Most major events once a year. Footballers play 3 times a week.
Yeah.
And it's a completely different code
But they're
of conduct.
rewarded in very many different ways and much better, aren't they?
Of course they are. Of course they are.
Although, did you see that list of Olympians and how much money they've made? Because it's now possible to become very wealthy if you're successful at any Olympics.
I went to a dinner about 4 or 5 years ago. About 4 or 5 years ago, and it was at Lord's Cricket Ground, and it was a charity thing. And I was sitting.
Was it in the long room?
Yes, it was actually. Yeah, it was. You're absolutely right. Yeah, it was Lord's in the long room. Famous longs room that the cricketers have to walk through to get out onto the pitch when they're batting and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Pictures of W.G. Grace.
Yeah, I've never been
that.
there. Actually.
No, it's quite spectacular. And I was sitting next to Sally Gunnell, and she said she was the first generation of athletes who could actually afford not to have another job.
Right.
And that because she was a gold medal winner.
And she got sponsored and all that kind of thing.
Exactly.
She did very well.
Well, funnily enough, one of the reasons we were there was we were on Jaguar's table and we both had Jaguar-sponsored cars.
Did you?
Yeah.
Why did they sponsor you?
Well, because I was...
For what purpose?
I was a prominent broadcaster, so they felt like giving me a car.
Really?
Which is very kind of them.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, well, I suppose it is, yeah. But
they wouldn't do that now, would they?
I think they still do. I mean, I don't need one now because I've got a fabulous Mercedes, so that's okay.
Say. So you say.
Well, you've seen it.
Well, I've seen it, yeah. But
you don't think it's fabulous?
Well, it's all right.
It's all right.
It's not like the greatest car I've ever seen.
When I park it next to your jalopy, mate, it makes your jalopy look about 30 years old.
Yeah, well, it's nearly 30 years old.
Yeah, exactly.
It's about 15 years old.
Yeah,
so, yeah. Well, there's no comparison.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're talking too much about all of that because coming up a little bit later on, we're going to talk to the Isle of Muck owner.
Yes.
Lawrence McEwen. His family actually own the island.
Yes.
It's up near
fantastic,
the Isle of Skye. It's a beautiful part of the world.
It's about 18 miles from the Scottish coast. I think it's the furthest island out, isn't it?
Well, I mean, if it's not...
No, I think it is.
Well, 18 miles is not that far.
No,
if you think about the Outer Hebrides.
It's not a bad way to...
or if you think about Orkney and you think about Shetland.
Yeah, but when you think you can drive over a bridge now to Skye, but you've got to get a boat for 18 miles to get to Muck, that's a comparison.
Yeah, I suppose so.
Yes.
That's why the teacher is leaving, I guess.
Exactly,
because it's all a bit isolated and they need a new one. But we'll find out all about that coming up very, very shortly. Ask Porky as well coming up later on. We're talking about bagpipes as well, believe it or not, because apparently they might be dangerous for you. With the two mics.
You're listening to the Two Mics on TalkSport.
This is a repeated programme, so please don't call the show as you won't get through, but you still may be charged.
We are the Two Mics. Rob says this, Mr. Parry, your cinnamon challenge was a very silly thing to do for a guy with a dodgy ticker. Please take more care in future.
Well, you know, you've got to sort of look at life and laugh in its face, if you know what I mean.
And grab it with both hands.
Yes.
Cold Heart says, just watch the Porky Cinnamon video. I'm still crying with laughter.
Really?
It is one of those things, I have to say, if you haven't seen it, go and have a look, because no matter how many times I see it, you still end up bursting out laughing and literally crying.
Yes.
Here's one from David, who says this, after Mike Parry's diving performance, I think you at MG should have a bet. Loser jumps off the high board. Hashtag just an idea.
Yeah, good idea. I like that.
I don't fancy jumping off any kind of high board. Thank you very much indeed. And David also reminds us, as an earlier tweeter did, that it was Steve Marriott from the Small Faces who died in a house fire.
Yes, I saw that as well. Thank you very much indeed. Sorry to have to prick people's memories on that one, but it was one of those things. Rock stars sometimes die like that.
Yeah, they do.
I'm afraid to have to say.
Very sadly. Now, not many rock stars play the bagpipes, though, do they?
No.
And apparently the bagpipes can be actually much more dangerous than anybody previously thought.
We've just seen this report which says that bagpipes, because of the nature of what they're made of, I suppose they're made of like animal skins and things, aren't they? Because the wind goes into the bag.
Traditionally, I think. But I'm not sure if they still are.
Yeah, but apparently they accumulate spores, which can get into the back of your throat, and years later you might find yourself suffering from some dreadful disease born by your playing of the bagpipes.
Which would be terrible. Luckily, we've got somebody who knows an awful lot about them.
Excellent.
The president of the Scottish Pipers Association, Tom Johnson, is here with us. Tom, a very good morning to you.
Good morning.
Thank you very much indeed for joining us, Tom. I don't know whether you've seen this report, but if you have, what do you make of it?
Yes, I've heard of this before. A friend of ours called John Shone, who's an older chap, he had this lung disease a few years ago and was seriously ill with it, but fortunately he recovered from it. But this poor chap, in the report, I'm afraid he died of it.
Really?
That's terrible.
And, I mean, is it? I mean, you must know an awful lot of people that have played the pipes over the years. I mean, is it something that happens very, very rarely? I mean, why would this report suddenly come up with this?
I think it's a wee bit of sensationalism. This is a very, very infrequent thing to happen to anybody.
And, I mean, you're not going to have to give out sort of warnings to members of your Pipers Association that there's certain things that they shouldn't do.
I think everybody's aware that they should clean out their pipes occasionally, or regularly, rather.
Right.
But things have improved over the years because most people don't use animal skin bags anymore.
That's the old traditional bagpipe thing, isn't it?
Yes, in the old days, in fact, when I was young, nearly everyone either had a sheepskin bag or a cowhide bag.
Right. And was that something that was made specifically by, very, very specialised companies?
Yes, there's one or two special bag makers that make these things.
Right. So what are they made of now then, Tom?
They're made of composition, but the main part of it is Gore-Tex.
Mm-hmm.
Gore-Tex? What, you mean that stuff that is kind of weatherproof?
Yeah, it's the same stuff they make jackets from.
Mm-hmm.
And the good thing about the new bags is that most of them have zips on the bottom of them, so you can actually open up the bag and let it dry out when you're not using it.
I see. Tom, can I ask you this, please? How many bagpipe players are there in the world?
He might not know the answer to that.
I don't know the answer, no. There must be hundreds of thousands, though.
Hundreds of thousands, OK, because obviously the main country in which they exist is Scotland, yeah. How long has playing the bagpipes been going on? Did it literally originate from, some ancient tribe finding a pig's bladder and sticking a stick in it and there you go?
Well, there's evidence of bagpipes being played way back, like the 14th, 15th century in lots of different countries, like Bulgaria and places like that. And there's actually a painting by Peter Bruegel, who was, I think he was Dutch.
He was Dutch, yeah.
Yeah, from the 15th century, and it features two guys playing the bagpipes.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing. And so how did Scotland acquire it? I
think it just evolved through natural progression from a primitive bagpipe to the more sophisticated ones that we have today.
And in terms of the actual pipes, what were they made of if you had an animal skin bag, and what are they made of now?
Nowadays, they're mostly made of African blackwood. In the old days, they would use fruit trees, whatever was available.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. And do they not make them out of porcelain and that kind of stuff so that they wear better?
No, they do make chanters out of a plastic substance called delrin or polypenco. But mostly the drones are made out of African blackwood.
Oh, I see, fine. Now, Tom, I'm told...
that might be quite hard to find. Is that very expensive, Tom?
Yeah, a decent set of pipes will set you back at least 600 quid.
Really?
600 quid, I understand. Now, Tom, I'm told, and I don't play any musical instruments, that the bagpipe is one of the easiest instruments in the world to learn how to play because
that doesn't sound right.
No, basically, the bit you have under your elbow, you just keep pushing air into the bag, don't you? When you're blowing, you're pushing air into the bag, and the air coming out is just being played like a child's recorder, isn't it?
Yeah, that's putting it very.
Well, I think he's putting
simply,
it. Yeah, I think it's a much more complicated process. Surely,
well, perhaps Tom could explain them, please.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, as one of my students said, it's only 9 notes. How difficult can it be?
Yes.
But in actual fact, although you've only got 9 notes, we have a series of other notes called grace notes, and a combination of grace notes is known as a doubling. So you might have as many as 8 or 12 grace notes forming one of these doublings. So It does become quite a complex thing to play.
So how long does it take to learn how to sort of be proficient at it? Because there's nothing worse for me than hearing somebody playing the bagpipes who can't play them.
Yeah, exactly.
It just sounds like you're strangling a cat. So I mean, how long would it take for you to teach, for example, my broadcasting colleague here who doesn't play any musical instruments?
Well, legend has it that it takes 7 years to make a piper.
Wow.
As a bagpipe instructor, my record at the moment from starting a student to him playing in a pipe band is exactly 1 year.
1 year, that's fantastic. Wow, what an achievement. Now, Tom, can I ask you this, please? What did you think of Paul McCartney's Mull of Kintyre?
Yeah, I thought it was fantastic.
So did I. So did I.
Is that a bagpipes in it?
Oh, my God, they're fantastic. They hired a piper band, right? And if you see the video, they're all marching along the beach and all that kind of stuff, which is brilliant. But I saw an interview, Tom, in which Paul McCartney said that he had to restrict the range of chords he used on the other instruments because there is not a huge range with a bagpipe.
Yeah, the problem is actually the different key. The bagpipes are in the key of B flat,
right?
And they don't tune in very well with the other instruments. Nowadays, we have special chanters for playing along with orchestras, which makes life a lot easier.
Oh, I see. That's a modern development, is it?
Yeah, within the last 10, 15 years, I would say.
Right, and you obviously play yourself, Tom. How often do you just sort of pick it up on a daily basis and have a little blast at it?
Yeah, mostly I play on the practice chanter because I do a lot of teaching, and maybe pick up the pipes once or twice a week.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I would ask you to give us a little turn on them, but it's probably difficult to do that while you're talking to us, I guess.
Yeah, and I don't have the pipes with me at the moment.
No, exactly. Do you do commercial things, Tom? Somebody said to you, please, Tom, would you come and stand outside the church when my daughter gets married a week on Saturday? Do you do that sort of thing?
Yeah, I do quite a few weddings a year and 1 or 2 funerals.
Mm-hmm. Oh, a funeral, that's a bit sad, isn't it? Yeah, but I suppose the last piper and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, well, it's quite a haunting
nostalgic
sort of lament,
yes,
isn't it?
Yes, indeed.
How much do you charge for that, Tom? If you don't mind me asking.
A funeral, maybe about £80, and a wedding, maybe about £160.
Yeah, people are more like to splash out, aren't they, in a wedding than a funeral?
Yes, I dare say. Yeah. So, Tom, by the sounds of things, you're not terribly concerned about this particular problem with what might happen if you play them.
No, I'm not too concerned, but I think people should be aware that they should clean out their blow stick. Regularly, and also their practice chanters because they get very wet.
Right.
Yeah, I see.
Well, we should remember that.
Just to fill you in here, Tom, this report includes a passage from a lady called Dr. Jenny King of University Hospital of South Manchester. She said it's the first case identifying fungal exposure from a bagpipe player as a potential trigger for hypersensitivity pneumonitis, but we have found it before in saxophones and trombones.
Really?
So, yeah, it seems like it's a musician problem rather than just your bagpipes. But we'll advise everybody to take your advice and
just remember to clean your blow stick.
Yeah.
Tom, thank you very much indeed. That's
Tom
Johnson there, president of the Scottish Pipers Association.
Yeah.
A very sensible man by the sounds of things.
Well, the guy's obviously measured and considered and knows exactly.
Did you ever see the New York Police Department Pipers Band? They used to, whenever there was a funeral or sometimes a parade, even Macy's sort of Thanksgiving Day parade.
I might have done, yeah. I might have
seen
it on
they've got a whole
Day,
sort of regiment of police officers who play the bagpipe.
Yeah,
but it's more of an Irish thing than a Scottish thing.
Yeah, it is actually.
But it sounds great. A lot of pipers playing together does sound quite
I love
remarkable.
the bagpipes. And I'm amazed you didn't realise the significance of Mull of Kintyre. That was almost entirely on bagpipes.
You love the Mull of Kintyre. I don't. So, I mean, it's not something I've got in my head, really.
Let me tell you, for 3 or 4 years, the band moaned like mad that they only got paid 15 quid each. And it became the biggest selling record of all time. And Paul McCartney, who's hundreds of multi-millionaire pounds worth,
he didn't get where he is today paying piper bands £1 million.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah. So, we got lots more coming up. We're going to be talking about psychopaths. We're going to be talking about the Isle of Muck as well. And, of course, it's Ask Porky coming up a little bit later on in the show.
You're listening to the Two Mics on TalkSport.
This is a repeated programme, so please don't call the show as you won't get through, but you still may be charged.
We are the Two Mics, Mike Parry and Mike Graham. There will be a podcast coming out a little bit later. Yesterday's podcast was slightly delayed, but it is out there now, I understand.
Indeed.
So, not that you can listen to that at the same time as listening to the actual live show. So I wouldn't recommend. But
I wouldn't recommend listening to it till after this show's finished.
No, exactly.
This show finishes at 1.
Exactly. You can do that and then listen to this one later, obviously. But the people who are listening now are probably now quite confused because we'll tell them to listen to something later that they're already listening to. Anyway, a very interesting story which we unearthed this week about a place called the Isle of Muck.
Yes.
Where there's a school with only 7 pupils in it, right?
Yeah.
It's a very remote Scottish island. It's up near the Isle of Skye. You were saying earlier it's, 18 miles from the mainland?
Muck is the smallest of the 4 main islands in the Small Isles, part of the Inner Hebrides. It measures roughly 2.5 miles long and covers about 2 square miles, OK?
Right.
That's it.
And they want a teacher because the teacher who has been working in the school is leaving. And apparently loads and loads of people are applying for the job.
From all over the world.
Which is kind of surprising. We're going to talk now to Lawrence McEwen, whose family actually own the island.
Amazing.
And he's up in Mallaig. Yeah. Lawrence, a very good morning to you. Welcome to the show.
Good morning. Good morning.
Thank you very much indeed
for joining us.
So your family owns the island. Have you always owned it?
No, but we've owned it for 120 years.
Right. Mm-hmm. Okay.
So it's quite a long time.
And how many people actually live on the island?
38 at the moment. I think we've just had a baby born, so I think that might make 39.
Okay. And would you say the population is sort of indigenous, if you like, or do a lot of people move? Have a lot of them move there?
No, it used to be indigenous and Gaelic speaking, but today people come from all over Britain.
Right.
Okay, that's fine. Now, Lawrence, I found out by researching these things that on Muck there is no church, no shop, no post office. I presume there's no pub. So, what exactly do people do who live there, if you see what I mean?
Yes, well, that's a very good question. We do have a tea room which has actually got a license, and occasionally we have what we call pub evenings, and we bring in outside entertainers during the summer when there's quite a lot of visitors to the island.
Yeah,
it is quiet in winter, but we have broadband, so that isn't a problem. That a lot of Scotland in the more hilly parts.
And when the visitors
watch television, listen to the radio.
Right. Yeah. And when the visitors come in the summer, is there a hotel for them to stay at, or do they just...
Yes, there is. There's a very nice hotel.
Okay.
And there's also a yacht, and they can stay in a bed and breakfast. There's a bunkhouse.
Yeah.
And there's various other people on the island who take visitors.
Okay. Now, that is obviously a very distinctive lifestyle. So do you have to warn all these people who are applying for the job as a teacher, do you have to warn them about, the very special circumstances of their life, i.e., you are going to feel you're on a remote island, the supplies that only come in maybe once a week or once every 10 days or something like that you can't simply, nip out and catch a bus or a taxi or something like that. I mean, it is a different form of lifestyle altogether, isn't it?
Well, it certainly is different, and it can be challenging. During the winter months, the steamer service often doesn't call. It misses the island, so often you can't travel when you want to. That can be awkward. All supplies obviously have to be ordered online or on the telephone, and they may not be delivered.
And what happens when
have deep freezes? We don't have too much problem storing food.
But if you do order food, I mean, does it all come at once, as it were? I mean, if I presume that the local supermarkets on the mainland don't actually deliver it individually, is it sort of a weekly thing where everybody has to go down to the quayside and pick it up?
Yes, we do, and in 10 minutes' time I'm going down to pick up a load of supplies for a tea room.
Oh, OK, that's excellent. When you say a tea room, does the tea room serve the odd dram of whiskey? Or
he did say they had a licence,
Yeah, or do you only get that in the hotel?
No, you can get the odd dram and a few beers, yes, and a lot of our patrons do enjoy that and sit outside at our tables in the sunshine when it's sunny, but it often rains.
What about things like police and sort of fire cover and even ambulances? Is there any of that or not?
Yes, I was a special constable for 30 years. I only had to deal with one crime.
Oh, yeah, one crime.
Somebody stole 2 bottles of wine, but so I didn't have to do.
You haven't been up there, have you, Porky?
No, I haven't been up there lately. No, that wasn't me. But that's quite astonishing. And when you say your family have owned it now for 120 years, Lawrence, I mean, most property, most real estate appreciates over a century. Does that mean that you're sitting on a gold mine?
I don't think so. Most people who own property in the West Coast, a lot of them don't actually stay. They just come in the summer months. But this island does need the proactive management, the building a community. And one of the aspects of building the community is to keep the school open. So we've always been very keen keeping the school open. We have a nice school, very well equipped, and we've had some super teachers over the years. And it's just that our last teacher, who was really good, had to leave for personal reasons, and we're now looking for a replacement. There's also a post for a nursery teacher.
Okay. It must be quite a difficult place to kind of lead a private life, if you like. Presumably everybody knows what everybody else is doing. I'm looking at a picture here which shows about 8 or 9 houses in a fairly small kind of area. Are all the houses kind of clumped together, as it were?
Well, they're in 2 groups, and certainly everyone tends to, like in any small village, everyone tends to know a lot about what other people are doing. But, I mean, there's pros as well as... there's cons as well as pros when you live anywhere.
Yeah, no, of course there are. And I mean, I should imagine it's idyllic and beautiful for anybody who likes the natural world, isn't it?
Yes. There is this tremendous variety of wildlife and growing. Of course, there is a farm, but there's plenty of space for other things. Of course, fishing is a possibility. We have, round the shores, we have dolphins, porpoises, whales, and basking sharks.
That's fantastic. That would be lovely,
It causes great interest among the people who come to the island.
And would it be up to yourself or your family if someone wanted to sort of develop the island more? Like if somebody came to you and said, we'd like to come and build 50 houses on the other side of the island, could that be possible?
Probably, we probably wouldn't allow them to build 50 at once. But if we wanted to build 1 or 2, I don't see why we shouldn't. We're very flexible. We want to build a community, and obviously they've got to live somewhere. And I've built houses over my lifespan, and we have quite a lot of accommodation available. In fact, there's a house that's going to be empty quite soon. That would be ideal as a guest house.
And how much would that be sold for, would you say?
Well, we'd more likely to lease it. somebody. But we certainly would allow people to build as well. Obviously, they've got to buy a plot.
Right. I see.
Okay.
Let me ask you this, Lawrence. Final question, please. In the harshest winter months, for how long a period could the people of Muck be marooned, so to speak, from the rest of the world because of weather conditions?
Yes, never really more than 10 days.
Okay, well, 10 days to be cut off from the rest of the world.
Just 10 days. Well, that's not too bad. Lawrence, thank you very much indeed for taking the time to talk to us. That's Lawrence McEwen, whose family own the Isle of Muck. Maybe there's a property opportunity for your portfolio.
I was thinking about it. I was thinking, right, shall I just, leave the rat race altogether?
I wasn't thinking about that. I was thinking about you kind of, putting a house up there and renting it out in the summer months and making a massive profit.
What about me taking the lease on the house that can be turned into a guest house?
Yeah, I mean, does that mean he owns all the houses and he just leases, like, leasehold?
Well, he kept saying we, not me, so I imagine there's an island council or something like that, you know what I mean?
Well, no, not if he owns the island, though.
Well, yeah, but I mean, yes, but any family business would have a board of people running it, wouldn't it? You see what I mean?
So, yeah.
Over 120 years, he may be the elder member of the family, sounded like a very distinguished gentleman, and maybe different generations have other responsibilities.
Yes, but it may be that also he owns all the houses.
Yeah, it could be.
And he doesn't actually sell them. He only leases them out to people.
Yeah, could well be.
For a period of time.
Yeah.
Interesting, though. And if you want to be a teacher on the Isle of Muck, you have to apply to the Highland Council.
Yes.
And they say they've had a lot of applications, particularly from places like the Falkland Islands. People in the Falkland Islands, I guess, are used to
very similar, I suppose, yeah.
Slightly larger, but not much.
I've got an ambition to get to the Falklands,
Have
actually.
you?
It's one place I thought of going when you were away.
Yeah, I don't have any interest in going there.
Oh, I do.
It looks really boring.
Well, I'd like to go there for a couple of days because, of course,
It'd take you a couple of days to get there, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I think it would, actually, yeah. I think you have to go via Montevideo.
Or you have to fly to South America. And then,
you have to fly to South America, all right, yeah. I think it is Montevideo.
Yeah.
Although there is an airport.
Buenos Aires, maybe.
No, I think there's a political thing there about that.
Yeah, well, they keep bringing it up, don't they?
Yeah,
they keep saying, we'd like to get the Malvinas back.
That's right, I think it's Uruguay. But, no, of course, I worked alongside a chap in Fleet Street, Bob McGowan.
Yes,
and
who went down to cover the war.
Yeah, a week after I arrived in London from Manchester, I'd just been transferred, and I wish it'd been a year later, so I might have been a contender. Bob was off to the Falklands on the Canberra with Tommy Smith, the photographer.
Yes. And
Bob distinguished himself enormously. Bob and Tommy helped an injured soldier down, whichever mountain it was, and rescued him. And sad to hear last year Bob had retired and gone to Spain, died of cancer, unfortunately.
Oh, right, yeah.
But he was a great guy.
The Falklands sort of made Max Hastings as well, didn't it?
Oh, massively. Max was the star of the Falklands. I mean, he was a military historian and journalist, and he just saw this as his moment. He had to go, and he had to be there, and he took a very leading role. Because you've got to remember that a lot of the stuff that came out of the Falklands had to be shared between a great number of journalists because they couldn't have them running all over the Falklands.
Right.
So it's what's called...
And it was all fired back by telex or something, wasn't it?
It was all pooled to start off with, right?
Right.
And Max took the lead in getting the facilities to get the information back from the aircraft carrier, which I think the one that led it was Ark Royal.
Yeah.
I think
it was.
Yeah.
Fascinating stuff.
Yeah.
We'll talk some more about all of the stuff we've been getting into. We're going to be talking about psychopaths a little bit later on in the show.
Indeed.
And, of course, it is Ask Porky. There's lots of good questions coming in, but you can tweet them at the Two Mics or send them to our Facebook page, The Two Mics.
You're listening to The Two Mics on TalkSport.
This is a repeated programme, so please don't call the show as you won't get through, but you still may be charged.
We are the Two Mics. Lots more coming up in the next hour. We've got Ask Porky, as we said. We've got lots of really, really good questions, which I'm looking forward to asking.
Excellent.
Coming up. Quite a few people also telling us that they're going to be coming to see us in Edinburgh.
Lovely.
Which is very, very nice indeed. Rob has also put a very interesting picture out of you and me done up as Batman and Robin. And as you might be unsurprised to know, you play the part of Robin.
Yeah, well, you see, I don't get that.
Because you'd like to be Batman, wouldn't you?
Yeah, of course I would,
In any kind of the Batman-Robin scenario, you would think that you'd be in charge.
I have leadership qualities,
Really?
Yes.
Why do you think that?
Well, because I do. I take life by the scruff of the neck. You know what I mean?
I see what you mean. Yeah. Lots of other pictures coming in with some certain foodstuffs going on as well. And also, how about this one from Paul? Just going for a crafty smoke in bed, and he's put a picture of that fire-resistant stuff that Formula One drivers wear.
Yeah, it's a Formula One driver's fire-resistant suit.
Yes.
Now, listen, a bit of a history theme to the show today, isn't it? Bagpipes and Isle of Muck and all that kind of stuff.
What's that to do with history?
What?
The Isle of Muck.
Because the family have owned it for 120 years.
Yeah, I know, but it's not a history story, is it? It's a story about a school teacher.
Yeah. Yeah,
and the Bagpipes was a story about a lung illness.
Yes, but the Scottish Highlands are very old.
Well, they're no older than any other part of the world. The world is very old.
Yeah,
but the Scottish Highlands is pretty much the same age as all the rest of it.
Well, yeah, but I mean,
you'd have to say.
No, but you know what I mean. Because look, I want to talk to you about Stonehenge, right?
Do you?
Now, you know all the journals that I get sent and the books and all that. I've been sent another book, and it's about Stonehenge, and amazingly, it's called Stonehenge.
Is it?
Yeah,
really?
Yeah.
What a fascinating title.
And
who's written it?
A guy called Francis Pryor.
Okay.
And, I had a look through it, scanned through it and all that. But they've got a new theory about what Stonehenge was.
Well, because nobody really knows how it got there.
Well, they've got a great new theory.
What's the new theory?
It was a burial place. And if you span out from Stonehenge some, 1, 2 or 3 miles, they are now discovering not dozens, but hundreds of graves.
Well, there's loads of barrows around there.
That's what I mean.
Anywhere you drive in Wiltshire, you will see from time to time in the middle of fields, some long barrows, some round ones.
Yeah.
There was always people being buried. But are they saying that Stonehenge was actually a burial plot inside the circle?
No, what they're saying is that the stones represent the eternity of life. The stone never perishes. Then your ancestors will not perish if they're buried within sight of Stonehenge.
Within sight of it, rather than just inside.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah, within sight of it. Yeah,
okay.
and so it says here the stones appeared for years and years. Sorry, the actual stones we see today, appeared many years after the site had been identified as a special location.
Right.
Much has been made of the avenue, the northeastern approach to the site, that is precisely aligned with the midsummer solstice. That is where the sun rises on June the 21st.
But they still don't know how the stones got there, though, do they?
Well, yeah, they do. They're all on wood, didn't they, from Wales?
Well, that's what the theory was.
Yeah.
But remember when those people tried to sort of replicate what had happened?
Yeah.
Because they said the stone must have come from Wales because it was that was the only other place we could find it.
Yeah, that's right. Same sort of stone.
And they went through this whole rigmarole where they had the logs and they
Yeah.
started rolling it and it was all going terribly well. And then they got to the Bristol Channel and they put the stone in a boat and it sank to the bottom of the to the bottom of the riverbed.
Well, they must have walked around a long way or something, I suppose. I don't know.
No, I don't think they could have done that.
But anyway, look, it says here... the defining insight has come from a Madagascan archaeologist called Ramil Sononina.
Okay.
And
it doesn't strike me as a particularly brilliant theory, this, because,
hang on,
everybody knows that there are bodies buried all around the place.
No, hang on.
I'm not going for this at all.
Now, Ramil Sononina says, in my home country of Madagascar, people built in stone for ancestors because stone, like our ancestors, is eternal.
Well, that's fine. But
right?
How does that prove anything?
Well, hang on. He says, buildings of the living are made of wood.
Yes.
Because it, like human lives, is transient.
But they're not, are they?
No.
Buildings are not made of wood.
No. Buildings of the living. So people who are living live in wooden buildings.
They don't.
They did in those days.
Oh, I see.
They knocked down the trees and built wooden houses, right?
I mean, they still build wooden houses in America, but not here.
Yeah, but not here, right? So.
What about in Madagascar? Maybe they wouldn't.
Yeah, well, they are. They are in Madagascar.
That's what he's saying.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So his theory's good for Madagascar.
Yeah, hang on. Buildings of the living are made of wood because it, like human lives, is transient. Stonehenge was clearly a place for the ancestors. Okay,
right.
Now. This theory is borne out by the discovery of a site a few miles to the northeast, made primarily out of wood for the living.
Wood for the living?
Yeah, wood for the living, yeah.
Well, you know there's a Woodhenge, don't you?
No, I didn't know.
Yeah, there's a Woodhenge. Yeah, it's in Wales, I think.
Really?
I think I've been there, yeah. Somewhere sort of west of Cardiff.
This is backing up my theory.
No, it's not, because if that was also a burial place, then why wasn't it made of stone?
Well, here, listen, I haven't finished yet.
Right.
Stonehenge, it is now believed, was the final stop in a funeral procession. The dead would eventually be buried in the countryside around it within sight of the stones. It is a simple theory, but it works. The site to the northeast was briefly a huge village, one of the largest in Europe in the pre-monolithic age or whatever, at exactly the same time as Stonehenge was being built. So that's where the workforce must have lived. Who built Stonehenge?
Well, yeah, possibly, but there's still so many mysteries about how it was done and how they managed to get the stones upright, even if they did transport them from Wales. I mean, nobody knows really, with the pulley system and whatever it is that they had, nobody really understands how it could have been done.
That is a mystery how they got them upright, isn't it, when you think about it?
And also, I presume you've been there, right?
Yes, I've been there.
Because you used to be able to go actually right inside the circle, which I don't think you can do anymore, because they had to sort of stop people from vandalising.
I remember in the very early days, I was probably in my early 20s, driving down Parkin and walking amongst the stone.
That's right, yeah.
Used to be able
I don't think they let you do that
There was a
anymore.
little chicken wire fence, but it had openings to allow you to go onto the site.
Now there's like a massive sort of visitor centre on the opposite side of the road.
That's right.
And but there are, we've known for a long time that there are barrows all around the place.
Yes.
But, there's not thousands of people buried there. It's probably no more than a couple of dozen.
No, they think it's more, you see.
He thinks it's more.
Yeah, he thinks it's more.
But what does he know?
Well, he's an archaeologist from Madagascar.
From Madagascar.
And he says they've got the same sort of stone in Madagascar, and the people there...
Same sort of stone?
Yeah, same sort of stone.
What, the blue stone from Wales?
Yes,
Well, they get it to Madagascar?
Yeah.
But how did they get it there?
Well, no, they didn't get it there. It developed naturally there. Yeah, in another part of the world.
Okay.
And all this, of course, was in 2100 BC.
Was it?
That's a long time ago.
A very long time ago.
Yeah, that's 4 centuries.
But this doesn't really bring us any more information than we kind of knew, does it? I mean, it's a bit of a waste of a book, really, to be honest.
No, it's not.
I don't think it's worthy of much merit at all.
Look, when you don't know, then you should appreciate some other scientist or archaeologist coming up with yet another theory.
Well,
so that gives you then the ability in your own head to have absorbed all the theories about Stonehenge and make your own mind up.
If it's helpful, yeah, but I don't
just
think
making
it's
your mind up.
Yeah, I just don't think it brings anything new to the party, to be honest. That's all.
Well, I think once again you're showing your Philistinian side.
Because I consider Wiltshire.
What you're saying is,
I consider Wiltshire.
What I've told you is just a waste of time. That's what you've said.
Yeah, because one, it's a theory. 2, it's not a very good theory, and 3, it appears to only apply to Madagascar. So, the whole idea of people living in wooden houses is nonsense.
No, I don't think it is. What do you say about Wiltshire?
I was going to say I regard Wiltshire as my sort of one of my home counties, and I used to live very close to Stonehenge, and I used to drive across Salisbury Plain on a regular basis.
Yes,
and I used to go to Avebury, where they've got a slightly different.
I've seen the Avebury stones; they're beautiful,
and that's very, very interesting as well.
They're not as big, are they?
They're not as big, and they're also not as symmetrical.
No, they're not. No,
they're just a kind of collection of stones which are put in various different places.
There's one there, isn't there? Have you seen it, or the guide told me something about it? What about getting the stones upright and all that? Well, at the last moment, when you've got it all upright, you drop the stone into the
hole.
Right? And what happened was, unfortunately, a workman fell beneath one of the stones, so it came down.
And he was crushed.
No, he wasn't. This is the point. He went down, but he was pinned into the hole.
Right.
And to get him out, they'd have to take the stone out again, which is an enormous job in those days, obviously.
Right.
So they just said,
So he was crushed?
No, they had to bury him alive with the stone. Yeah, it wasn't pleasant.
That's not very nice, is it?
I hope they sort of shot him or something first.
You know what I mean? They had guns in those days.
Well, you know what I'm talking about, like an arrow through the eyeball or something. You know what I mean?
I don't know why I have to be so violent about it.
No, but I mean...
He was already being crushed by the stone.
Yes, but wouldn't that be preferable to filling in all the cement around the stone?
They didn't have cement either.
Well, you know what I'm talking about, the gravel or whatever.
See, I don't think you can grasp any of this stone stuff
I can. What I'm saying is, instead of chucking a load of soil on the top of the bloke's head so he suffocated...
Yeah.
Somebody should have cracked him on the head to put him out of his agony.
Yeah, is that what you would have done?
Well, of course I would. Yeah, I'd have fired an arrow into his ear because that would have hit his brain and then he'd be dead.
Yeah, I don't think you have to be so graphic.
Well, no, but
I'm family shows.
Yes, I know, but you've got to think on your feet, haven't you? And these sort of things happen. You know.
I find. What do you think about the ley line theory as well, which I find fascinating, which comes up from sort of Cornwall, right?
Yes.
Funnily enough, from Tintagel Castle, which we talked about the other week.
Yes.
Up through Glastonbury.
Yes.
And then up through Stonehenge, Avebury, and all the way up through to sort of London.
Yeah, but isn't that one of these things where actually you can connect anything to anything if you think hard enough about how it happens?
No, there's a lot of theories about that.
So what is a ley line?
Well, the ley line is supposed to be a kind of magical connecting line, which somehow has powers that people can draw on if they are able to do so.
And what powers do they draw on this ley line?
Well, I mean, it's supposed to be the sort of thing that witches can get powers from.
Yeah, but I mean, in the modern world, how does it relate to the modern world?
Well, I don't know, but I'm saying that's a far more interesting
it's
theory
a load of nonsense
than your bloke from Madagascar.
It's got no practical use at all.
About wooden houses.
It's got no practical use. It's not much use to us,
well,
is
no,
it?
It has got practical use because it's one of those things whether you believe it or not. But there's certainly something magical about Stonehenge, about Avebury, and about Glastonbury. You'd have to say.
Well, I've been to Glastonbury tour. I climbed up it myself. Yeah. Right. And it's a most unimpressive building on the top. It's just like a church with no doors.
Well, it's a tour. I mean, it's just a little thing, isn't it?
Yeah, I know. Have you been up there?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I have to say, I don't know why it's not more widely abused, because all these hippie-type guys, all these Mother Earth people and all that, surely they get off their heads, don't they, on sort of LSD and all this, and then go up there and...
I think that's a bit of a blanket statement. You don't want to climb all the way up there and just get off your head on LSD. You climb all the way up there and then marvel at the view. Yeah, but of the Somerset levels.
Yeah, but you know what I'm saying. All these guys who, I suppose, are pagans or druids or something like that. Wouldn't they want to go up there and then sort of think, I'm closer to heaven now than I am down on the ground?
When it's important in their calendar,
and then get off their heads because that's what people do.
No, it's not what people do.
No, a lot of religious nutters get off their heads.
Time, by the way.
Don't worry about the time. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think once again you made a completely blanket statement about all sorts of people who may wish to reply to that accusation.
I haven't named any particular group.
No, apart from the Druids and the pagans.
Well, yeah, that's right. Yeah. Just
exactly. Now, Ask Porky coming up. We've got loads of really, really good questions, but fire them in at the Two Mics and onto our Facebook page as well. We will be trying to put that out live on Facebook and on Periscope as well.
Indeed.
In the next hour.
You're listening to the Two Mics on TalkSport.
This is a repeated programme, so please don't call the show as you won't get through, but you still may be charged.
Good afternoon, I'm Mike Graham, he's Mike Parry, you're listening to the Two Mics. We are, I think, going to talk to Lembit Opik in this hour. I think we managed to track him down. He's not on the top of a mountain, hopefully. We're also going to talk to Professor Kevin Dutton about psychopaths. And, of course, it's Ask Porky. So if you haven't yet had one of your problems solved, this is the time to do it. You can tweet us at the Two Mics, do a hashtag Ask Porky, and of course you can post it on Facebook as well, and we'll be doing that very, very shortly. He is, of course, here to help. You're listening to the Two Mics with me, Mike Graham, and Mike Parry on TalkSport. Now, Mr. Parry, I suppose we could say that we're very used to looking at league tables of certain sporting activities.
We certainly are.
We looked at the league table of the Olympics and saw that Great Britain, Team GB, came second. Do you know that Professor Kevin Dutton, who's a Professor of Experimental Psychology at Oxford University, where you almost went to study,
Indeed,
but unfortunately didn't quite make it, he's done a league table of psychopaths.
Wow.
Which is
you mean
remarkable.
down the years or currently?
Well, down the years, really.
Right.
It goes, the leaderboard starts off with Saddam Hussein, Henry VIII, Idi Amin, Donald Trump and Adolf Hitler. They're the top five.
Who was Genghis Khan?
Genghis Khan doesn't appear to be in here.
Vlad the Impaler.
Bernie Sanders is there, though. And so is Hillary Clinton.
Golly,
so is Winston Churchill.
Well, that needs a bit of explaining.
And Jesus is in there as well, would you believe? So let's talk to Kevin and find out how he actually managed to grade these particular people and why he thinks some people who are, to all intents and purposes, sort of leaders of the world, are psychopaths. Kevin, a very good afternoon to you.
Hello, Mike. How are you, mate?
Very well indeed. I haven't spoken to you for a very long time, but welcome. As my colleague Mr. Parry says, where's Genghis Khan? I mean, or is he further down the list?
He's in the pipeline, Mike. This is an ongoing study, so everyone's obviously going to have their favourites who are going to be in there. Genghis Khan is actually being done at the moment. Vlad the Impaler, I haven't got round to him yet.
Okay.
That's one who's kind of slipped through the net a little bit. But this is the league table of the people that have been done so far. And as you rightly say, leading it in, as I suppose you could say, gold medal position at the moment is Saddam Hussein. Next is Henry VIII in silver medal position. The Saddam Hussein of the Tudor court, I suppose you could say. Idi Amin in third place. And then, as you rightly say, the Donald comes in fourth, just 2 points ahead of Adolf Hitler, believe it or not.
Now you've got to, Prof, explain to us, please, how what's the thinking pattern here? Because to all intents and purposes, Donald Trump might be a very extraordinary man and very eccentric and says a lot of things people don't like, but he's never, to our knowledge, gone around massacring people. And how on earth can you
I think you could probably safely say he hasn't done it.
He hasn't massacred anybody. And how on earth does Jesus, who's supposed to have been, the kindest
Son
man
of God
of all time and the Son of God, appear in a psychopath table?
Well, it's true, Mike. I mean, actually, when you mention the word psychopath, people instantly think of like Hannibal Lecter and Ted Bundy and serial killers and all that kind of thing. But actually, when psychologists like myself talk about psychopaths, we're actually referring to a specific group of individuals with a distinct subset of personality characteristics. Now, those characteristics, which this psychometric measure assesses, are qualities such as ruthlessness, fearlessness, self-confidence, focus, coolness under pressure, mental toughness, charm, charisma, and of course those kind of signature deficits in empathy and conscience that you hear so much about. Now, none of those traits is necessarily a problem in itself. In fact, all of them, dialed up at the right level and deployed in the right context, can actually, be rather useful. The key is in context and level. And I think when you think of it in that way, guys, what you start to realise is that actually, first of all, there's no one-size-fits-all objectively correct setting at which, if you think about those characteristics excuse me, as being, say, dials on a studio mixing desk. There's no one objectively correct setting at which those dials may be positioned, but the most effective alignment will invariably depend on timing, on the kind of set of circumstances you might find yourself in.
So what measurements are you using? Because I know in the past, Kevin, you've done sort of psychopath quizzes that people can take, and sometimes they do in newspapers and all that. And I mean, certainly it's not any surprise to me that I usually come up as a psychopath, and most journalists probably do, and many people who have relatively normal lives would register as a psychopath or a sociopath or something like that. But so, how are you measuring these people?
Well, that's exactly right, actually, Mike. So what I've done is I've got a psychometric measure which looks at psychopathic characteristics. It's a validated questionnaire, and so what I did with the people who are all the guys who are in the league table, apart from the 4 presidential candidates, are all dead. So I didn't want to end up getting sued.
Right.
What I did was I handed out this psychometric measure to the biographers of all of these people, who obviously knew their subjects very, very well, and I got them to fill it out on their behalf. And from their responses, I then graded these figures according to how high they scored on various psychopathic characteristics, such as your ruthlessness, fearlessness, mental toughness, coolness under pressure, and all those kinds of things. And what you find is that there are certain jobs and professions which, by their very nature, are going to demand that some of those characteristics are turned up just that little bit higher than average, demand what I call precision-engineered psychopathy. And politics is, of course, a great example of that. You know, if you think about the kind of things you need to do as a world leader, you need to make, tough decisions, tough calls under pressure. You need to face crises, ranging from, rogue nation states to, natural disasters. You might have to send them, young men and women of your country, to war in the certain knowledge that they're going to lose their lives.
Yeah.
All those kinds of things you need to do as a world leader. And those demand that you need to be, a little bit further along the psychopathic spectrum than you might want to be in everyday life.
Yeah, OK, fine. Now, all this is contained in a book, The Wisdom of Psychopaths. That's great. But quite frankly, what you've done here, Prof, is you've redefined the meaning of psychopath to the majority of the population. Because I always believed a psychopath was a guy who would kill you as soon as look at you. You know, the sort of guy you meet in a bar, you spill a drink and, the guy whips, his hand out and kills you.
Like Joe Pesci, you mean?
Yeah, Joe Pesci or something like that. But what you're telling us is there's plenty of psychopaths walking around on Earth who've never killed anybody.
Oh, absolutely, Mike. I mean, you've nailed it in one. I think the media perception of psychopath, as soon as you hear the word, you think of serial killers and, nutcases that stab you in bars. Absolutely right. But when psychologists like myself talk about psychopaths, we're referring to a spectrum, and we're all on that spectrum. We're all on it in some way or another. Some people are really, really high on it, and they are what you might call your pure psychopaths. They're your... in some cases, your serial killers, etc., etc. But actually, we're all on that spectrum, and actually, there are certain professions which demand that some of those characteristics that I've been talking to you about, we need to have a little bit more of them.
Yeah. So you're saying, Kevin, if for example, you find yourself sitting next to a psychopath, as we probably both are, because you're probably one as well.
Yes,
right?
maybe.
You shouldn't be worried about that.
No, absolutely right. I mean, I suppose it depends where you're sitting next to them.
Yes.
If you're in everyday life, I mean, we rub shoulders with people who are on the psychopathic spectrum all the time. Top CEOs, very high on the psychopathic spectrum. I've done, work. We're looking at, special forces soldiers.
Yeah.
Again, very high on the psychopathic spectrum, many of them, because they need to be ruthless. They need to be fearless. They need to make very quick decisions under a lot of pressure.
So are you at a disadvantage then, in general, if you're not a psychopath?
Well, it depends what kind of profession you're in or what kind of situation you're in, actually, Mike. I mean, if you're a carer, for instance, or a teacher, or something like that, where, psychopathic characteristics might not be required, then you might well be at a disadvantage. But if you're in a position where, you need to make tough calls under pressure, where you need to keep a cool head, where you need to be ruthless, say in business, for instance, or surgery, professions like that, then actually you're not at a disadvantage at all. I mean, I think there's two arguments here. I don't think it's going to come as a surprise to too many people that it's possible to lie and cheat, brag and manipulate your way up the ladder if you don't have the natural talent.
It's pretty much what Porky's done all his career.
Excuse me, I know plenty of people who have. Yeah, go on, Prof.
If you don't have the natural talent, guys, that your job requires. But I think what's a much more interesting argument, may well come as a surprise to your listeners, is that if you do have the requisite skill set, and this is where it's really important, certain psychopathic characteristics can actually help you capitalise on your natural ability in various professional arenas.
It's very interesting. The one last observation I've got on this list of yours, Prof, is that Oliver Cromwell is way down the league. I thought he was, a really, really ruthless man who didn't take any truck from anybody, who closed down the theatres, who made everybody a Puritan, and yet he's way down your list.
He is. He's very high on the trait that you've just mentioned there, Mike. He's very high on ruthlessness and cold-heartedness. Yeah. But what lets him down, I suppose, in the psychopath stakes is he is not too high on a number of the other things. He's not too high on the narcissism. He's not too high on the impulsivity. He's not too high on the persuasiveness either. So he is very ruthless and very cold-hearted. Yeah. But he's kind of let down by, I suppose you could say, his other events in the psychopath decathlon.
And in the end, he got overturned, didn't he? And lost his all his power and all his kingdom.
And so did Saddam Hussein, and so did Idi Amin.
Exactly,
we'll see about Donald Trump. I guess we'll have to wait and see.
It does always end.
And does it matter that Donald Trump is higher up the league than Hillary Clinton? Does that give us a clue as to who might win?
No, not really, Mike. I think actually there are slight gender differences, actually, and this has become a little bit obscured by the headlines. There are slight gender differences. You have to weight it slightly. So actually Hillary Clinton's score, the maximum score on the test is 240. So Donald Trump scores 171, which is very high. Hillary Clinton scores 152, so that's 19 points behind. That is high normally, but actually it is very high for a woman. So actually you do have to rate it. So I would say pretty much that it's nip and tuck between the Donald and Hillary on this particular measure. Right. Both very high on persuasiveness, also both very high on what we call Machiavellian egocentricity, that kind of almost narcissism, that demand, that need to be the centre of attention. But you find that in a lot of politicians, actually.
Yeah, you do. And quite a few broadcasters, funnily enough. Kevin, as ever, thank you very much indeed. Professor Kevin Dutton there, Professor of Experimental Psychology at Oxford University. We didn't get around, because it was rather long, that interview, we didn't get around to asking him about Brasenose College, whether he knew anything about it.
He's a very lively-sounding prof,
top
isn't
man,
he?
yeah,
You know what I mean? You know, professors are normally...
I used to speak to him quite a lot years ago.
Yes.
He's very... He puts everything into a sort of a very user-friendly way of looking at it. But you've probably taken those psychopath quizzes, haven't you, in the past?
No,
have you never?
No.
Well, maybe we should give you one at some point.
Well, maybe. I don't mind taking one, but I never acceded to one because I thought nobody's going to accuse me of being a psychopath.
Yeah.
However,
I think
psychopaths now are actually... It's quite a good thing to be a psychopath. I might start taking the quizzes to prove that I am one,
Just to prove it, absolutely right. Coming up, it's Ask Porky very, very shortly. Keep sending in your questions. Hashtag them Ask Porky on Twitter at The Two Mics and send them to our Facebook page, The Two Mics.
You're listening to The Two Mics on TalkSport.
This is a repeated programme, so please don't call the show as you won't get through, but you still may be charged.
We are at The Two Mics. There will be a podcast coming out a little bit later on. Paul has sent a rather interesting picture in on Twitter, which is basically Stonehenge made out of fish fingers.
Yeah, I love it. That's
and
great.
He says that could be your dinner today.
That is absolutely great. What's the guy's name?
That's from Paul.
Paul, thank you very much indeed
very
for
creative,
your thought. That was
very
great.
creative.
Lovely.
Now, in the first hour of the show, we talked a little bit about Edinburgh Festival because we're going up there on Friday. Because we felt rather sorry for Lembit Opik because we read a review of his a show that he's involved with up in Edinburgh called Rocking Your Vote because the Spectator have rather savaged it. So we have managed to finally get hold of Lembit, who I think was on a train earlier on in the show, and we're going to find out what he makes of it all. Lembit, very good afternoon to you.
Before I was too devastated by the review.
Yes, well, I mean, it won't be the worst review you've had, probably, will it?
Well, the worst was the 2010 general election, I think, and about 15,000 people thought I was no good.
Yeah, absolutely right.
I haven't had an audience that big this time.
I mean, the thing that sort of stood out for me was when they suggested there were more people on the stage than there were actually in the crowd, which is a bit harsh.
Well, it shows that they weren't there, basically. The review has clearly been done by someone who didn't attend when I was performing because we had a full house.
Right.
I'm not there every single day because I've got to do some other stuff too. So sometimes I'm there as a video representative of myself. I've actually recorded it. But the day that I did, it brought the house down. The Spectator, of course, is incredibly politically motivated. They can't deal with anything which is done by a Liberal Democrat positively. So I don't hate them, I pity them. And also there's a lot of envy going on there because they've never performed in the Edinburgh Fringe, and I have. So that's another one for the bucket list, which they haven't got.
No, well, let me absolutely right. One of the reasons we're talking to you is we're going up on Friday. We've got 3 nights of shows, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, so we're looking forward to it very much. As you quite rightly say, in years to come, we can say, well, we got up on the stage and actually took a crowd on, and you lot didn't. What is your show? What does your show contain, Lembit? What does it consist of?
Well, first I'll observe the Spectator does exactly what it says in its tin. They sit and spectate. I'm a doer, and that's what this is all about as well.
Right.
Rocking Your Boat is, I suppose, a lyrical and perhaps a slightly ironic take on what it requires to get elected to Parliament. So a character played by my good friend Will Goodhand decides to stand for the Labour Party in a seat, and then he gets a bit depressed. I appear in the dream sequence to give him advice on the basis that anything that can go wrong, I have done wrong, and he might want to learn from me. And then later on in the dream sequence too, and I actually help him. So it's empowering for me, and hopefully it helps him a bit too. It's basically a take on the fact that politicians are human too, and if there is a serious message in it, it's not to take it too seriously. Paul, the Spectator, probably missed that point.
I think so. It's quite difficult to satirise politics at the moment, isn't it? Because it's so honestly ridiculous that you couldn't really make it up.
Yeah, it is actually. Somebody else said that to me. Will Goodhand said, the guy I co-wrote the thing with, he said that if we actually just did a play exactly reflecting what's going on in British politics at the moment, no one would believe it. And ours is probably a little bit more credible than that. I mean, it really is an extraordinary time where the satire has all been done by politicians who don't realise they're doing it. Yeah. The only party that managed to change their leader without pain was the Tories, and they changed their Prime Minister. Meanwhile, the Labour decides they're going to be 2 parties, I think.
Yeah, indeed, you might be all right. Now, you're very proud of having done the Edinburgh Fringe. Tell us a bit about the whole Edinburgh experience, because this is one of the world's most famous arts festivals. What were your reflections on it?
Well, I'm reflecting forward. I'm standing in the airport going on to do another live performance tonight.
Excellent.
That's how good it is. It's addictive. Basically, from a performer's point of view, it's addictive because it is arguably the biggest performance arts festival in the world. What's it about? Lots of people who get it on the whole, a few critics excluded, and understand that most people who go to the Edinburgh Fringe make a loss in doing so, but they want to be part of this unique experience, and that's what it is. What's it feel like? Quite nerve-wracking, because you are basically in front of a very discerning audience. Secondly, you are worried the seats are going to be completely empty. Luckily, that hasn't happened to us yet. And thirdly, I think the thing is you're surrounded by like-minded people, other people who feel your pain about the bad days and envy your success. Right. And the good ones, I've found into loads of comedians and other friends that I've worked with before there. So the city really does come alive. You'll see that whenever you go up this weekend, and I realise you're using me as a shameless opportunity to promote yourself.
That's a shocking allegation to make,
but absolutely true.
No, absolutely not true. Couldn't be more far from the truth. And what about the way the critics are sort of? I can see that you don't take much notice of the Spectator, but do the critics kind of have an awful lot of power in terms of thumbs up, thumbs down?
They have a little bit of power on the really big shows. On the smaller shows, it's down to leafleting, how good your leaflets are, and word of mouth from real people. We have ups and downs, partly depending on what other big gigs are on in the evening. And you'll probably find that too. You'll be the biggest gig, so all of the other venues will come to yours, and everyone else will be empty. And that is me trying to get a free complimentary ticket for your performance.
Oh, you're there, mate. You come, honestly.
We shall certainly put your name on the guest list, Lembit.
We shall indeed.
Now, storm the stage. But just about the critics, one thing is it's all part of the rough and tumble of it, really. I don't think anyone gets too upset by that because you've got thousands of events. Critics have to say something. They're doing their job. They've got mouths to feed too.
Absolutely right.
Indeed.
Now, are you still? The last time you and I spoke, I think it was a while ago, and you were embarking on a sort of bit of stand-up comedy. Is that still something you're doing, or what are you actually doing now?
Well, according to the Spectator, no, but I think it's going all right. Yeah. I've actually got drawn into. I've done fairly big gigs in London, Bar Rumba being one. I actually did the Right Stuff live, and I've done Glastonbury Festival as well.
Yeah.
So the Glastonbury Festival didn't go so well. 24 minutes in, somebody shouted, "When does the comedy hour begin, Lembit?" Which was a bit disappointing. Yeah. But the fact is, with comedy, mine's pretty much improvised. So it is actuality. It's looking at what's going on in the audience, having fun with that. So I can do a good 15 minutes. After about 5 minutes, I'm flagging. But it really makes me reflect on the greats. People like John Roald Dahl from Roald Gilbert, from Wales. Yeah. A guy called Paul Foote, who's the best improvised comedian I've ever seen in my life. Really? And, they're brilliant. Yeah. But most people haven't heard of them because there are more comedians than there are people to go and see them. So I will never be paying my wages on it, but I just love seeing these people, and it's an honour to know them.
That's great. And we're going on at 11 o'clock at night, Lembit. So what sort of mood will the audience be in by 11 o'clock in the evening?
They'll be tired and emotional.
Yes, exactly. That's what we want. Exactly, yeah.
That started about 11 in the morning, as far as I can tell.
Exactly.
And we're lucky we've been on at 6:30 in the evening. I did go to another event, which was on from 11 till 12. The audience was fairly polite, but they were obviously, let's say, resting a little bit. Yes. But, for something as good as yours, you can sober them right up with the drunken joy of entertainment. So you've got nothing to fear. It'll be Mike-tastic.
Well, that's very kind of you. Thank you very much indeed.
Well, Lembit, thank you for coming on. And if we run into that guy from Spectator, we'll have a word.
Yeah, we'll duff him in. And if you're up on Friday or Saturday or Sunday, please come and join us. You'd be a very, very welcome front row member of the audience.
Oh, thank you. And to tell the Spectator guy, if you meet him, in the classic words of the Northern Irish politician, I know where yous live. Yeah, he'll probably not get a bad review again then.
Exactly right. Lembit, thanks very much indeed. Lembit Opik there telling us about the show that he was in while we told him about the show that we're going to be in.
Yeah, but he says we're selflessly promoting.
But why did you offer him a first row seat?
Well, why not?
Well, because people are paying for those.
Yeah, well,
that's right. At the back.
Well, we'll throw one of the great and washed out and give Lembit the seat.
No, that is absolutely the wrong attitude.
No problem.
Supposed to be the man of the people, aren't you?
Yeah, I am man of the people.
Yeah, coming up, we're going to do Ask Porky very, very shortly.
You're listening to the Two Mics on TalkSport.
This is a repeated programme, so please don't call the show as you won't get through, but you still may be charged.
I need somebody help, not just anybody help. I need someone help. When I
we always managed to get some kind of Beatles song into the show, don't we? That is, of course, the theme tune for Ask Porky.
Yeah, but I mean, we don't put a Beatles song in for no reason whatsoever. That is help because I'm helping people.
You are about to help an awful lot of people.
Ask Porky.
And we've got an awful lot of really, really good questions here, and it is going out live on Periscope and on Facebook right now. Are you ready to begin?
Okay, let's go.
I've got lots of questions. As ever, if you can be as brief as possible while being incredibly detailed, that would be helpful.
Yes.
First one on Facebook from David.
Okay.
Dear Porky, I've fallen out with my missus. Any tips on winning her back? Maybe you could give her a shout out for me. It's Claire in Redditch. Tell her that I love her.
Okay, Claire in Redditch. Your husband, what's his name again?
His name's David.
David loves you. I used to live in Redditch. Redditch is a great place to rekindle a romance, okay? Just go to the Warwickshire-Worcestershire border, go to the Boot Inn at Mappleborough Green, get in there, get a couple of cocktails down your throat, and you will be away.
Okay, so that's your advice?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Gav says this, Porky, being the fine athlete that you are, have you got any tips for a half marathon I'm running for the British Heart Foundation?
Well, I did a half marathon. It was called the Great Northern Run. Okay, I had to walk it.
Didn't you?
I had to walk it. Only 1/3 of the heart worked, so I had to walk it. But I paced it out, and on the last stretch, going up the hill into South Shields, just about made it there. All you've got to do is make sure mind over matter as you do it, one step at a time, and don't start too near the front, because if you do, the people behind you will trample over you as they start their sprint.
What about training?
Training is easy. What you do with training is you power walk 4 miles, 5 miles, 6 miles and 7 miles in the month up to the walk. Never do more than 7 miles.
I think he's planning to run, isn't he?
And then go and hit it.
Oh, okay. How about this one? Very interesting from Aaron. Porky, did Adam and Eve have belly buttons?
Adam and Eve were fictional creations of mythical romances that started the world.
You don't believe they existed?
No, Adam and Eve didn't exist, honestly. So it's an irrelevant question. However, what I will say is that the power of love between man and woman which created the earth endures to this day, as does the power of love between all human beings who wish to coerce with each other.
Okay. Here's one from Richard on Facebook. Porky, if you were given £1,000 in cash, how would you double it in 24 hours?
The way to double £1,000 in cash in 24 hours is, at the moment, to buy gold and then borrow against that loan, OK?
Right.
So gold is going up enormously at the moment because of the instability of the world and the fact that the price of crude oil is going down because Iran have opened the taps and increased output. So I would definitely buy gold up to the value of
£1,000.
No, £2,000. By borrowing the other £1,000, that will have increased my money within months. But I'd hedged the money, so I've got it now.
So hang on. So you've advised this guy who's got £1,000
Yes.
and then borrow another £1,000.
Yes.
How does that make him double his money?
Because he's then got 2,000, and the money is not alone.
Well, everybody can do that.
No. It's hedged against the oil price. Believe me.
Okay.
It's a clever financial trick.
It's a very interesting theory, that one. Here's one from Pierre, slightly longer than normal. Dear Porky, can you recommend somewhere for us to move to and settle down in Stockbroker Belt, Surrey? I have a wife and a newborn baby. I'm looking for a 3-bedroom house with a £425,000 budget.
Yeah.
We are currently in Parry, but need to move further out as the wife wants a quiet life, but not too far out as my folks still live in Parry.
Yeah.
We want to remain close by. We need good transport links, schools, etc., and a lovely rural feel.
Yeah, OK. Well, Parry's OK, but if you just keep going down the road and go across the M25 and you're heading towards Gatwick Airport, if you buy somewhere around there, it will be cheaper. One of the reasons is, of course, because aeroplanes fly in and out of Gatwick Airport, and so that tends to affect the prices a little bit.
Yes. Well, so it could be cheaper then.
Could be cheaper indeed. But the problem is, Surrey is so expensive that, quite honestly, for £425,000, you don't get a lot in Stockbroker Belt. So if I were you, I'd think about moving somewhere else. Stockbroker Belt is the best. There are other places which are cheaper, like, for instance, Essex and places like that, or maybe even
Gosport.
Kent.
That's very cheap.
Well, no, Gosport's expensive if you've got a penthouse overlooking the Portsmouth Harbour.
If you have.
Yeah, okay.
But you haven't.
I would leave Stockbroker Belt, pal. I think you're over-ambitious.
Mark says this. Hey, Porky, what's the most pointless Olympic event?
Canoeing, but I've been talking about that all week. Any guy gets
I think that's unfair.
Any guy who gets in a canoe with a paddle and then starts paddling around ain't really doing much. Nobody's ever paid to see a canoeing event, and the guy who came 12th in the slalom, who I believe was British, he's getting another 4 years' money now to train for the next one. Pointless.
Well, it's not pointless for him. Christopher says this. Have you ever had a paranormal experience?
Paranormal experiences don't exist. The ghosts aren't there. They don't get around ghosts. You know, they're a figment of your imagination. Everything that happens in terms of, out-of-body experience, or, I saw a ghost, or, my father came back to me, 12, 20 years after he died, it's all in your head. And a lot of it's a result of mass bladderation.
OK. Blue Mona says this. At 18 years of age, you have to make a choice for your future. Be honest and poor, or be dishonest and rich. Which would you choose?
I'd like to be honest and rich, right? But if you're saying that it's one or the other, then I would veer towards dishonesty without being dishonest, i.e. sharp practice, to end up being rich.
OK. William says this. What's your suggestion when you find yourself locked out of your own home?
I
presume he means by mistake rather than by the person that's living there.
On one occasion, I was locked out of my own home, and it was due to extreme drunkenness because I'd left the keys somewhere on the way in. I simply kicked the door down, my own door. But the problem was the neighbour, because it was in a flat, a smaller flat than I live in now.
This was not the one with the big iron
door. No, I didn't have a...
Is that why you put that up, so you couldn't kick it in?
No. I have a protective gate because I used to spend a lot of time away working. The problem was, as I was kicking the door in, the neighbour called the police because she thought I was a burglar, but I wasn't. That was me. I lived there.
All right, so kick the door in, apparently.
Yeah.
Mark says this. I banged the car last night, causing nearly £1,000 worth of damage. The wife is rightly fuming. Other than paying for the damage, how can I make it up to her?
Well, you can make it up to her. First of all, you can't spend money on your wife by making her up to her taking her out for an expensive meal, because unless you have been living on Mars or the moon, you find out that insurance policies for cars are very, very expensive these days. And once you make a claim, your policy might double or treble. You're in trouble, pal, and you should drive more carefully.
Well, that's not really very helpful to him. Gerard says, Porky, as we're in a very uncertain economic climate at the moment, would you recommend renting property or trying to buy?
Well, that's a good question. The thing about renting is there's mobility of labour. The thing about buying is that it's not just that you look at the price of a house these days, it's all the taxes that accompany it. And one of the things that Mrs May, the new Prime Minister, is under enormous pressure to do now is cut the stamp duty, which has been massively hiked by the former Chancellor, George Osborne. However, a man's home is his castle and a man's castle is his home. Try and buy at all costs if you can. You won't regret it in 30 years' time.
Jamal says this, boys, my parents declined my request for a good vacation and all summer I stayed in the house. Should I be mad at them and what do I do?
Well, that depends on what sort of lifestyle you lead. If you're a lazy bum who doesn't contribute anything to the running of the household, then I can see your parents are trying to tell you to stand on your own 2 feet and provide things in your life which you wish for, like a car, like a holiday, like maybe your own house eventually. However, if you're a productive young man and you have contributed to the house, that's really mean. And do you know what I'd do? I'd move out and get your own place.
Sam says, what has been the greatest moment of your life?
Greatest moment of my life? That's a bit of a tough one. I would say the greatest moment of my life was probably being told that I was going to New York City to be the correspondent for the Daily Express. It's a job and an appointment which changes your life enormously. Your life's never the same again. It just gets better and better.
Stephen says this, Porkmeister, when at a fine Italian restaurant, what is your go-to food? I.e., what do you order?
Well, if I was in a fine Italian restaurant, I would order spaghetti with bolognese sauce.
Really?
But I'd ask for 3 portions of bolognese sauce because I don't like bolognese sauce that's just sauce. I like bolognese sauce to be meat.
Right.
See what I mean?
Yeah.
So I asked them to drain the
So
liquid.
You don't like too much spaghetti, you like a lot of sauce?
Yeah, I like a lot of meat, actually. I usually ask them to drain the liquid off the sauce in a big bowl and give me the meat that's left.
How irritating.
On a fairly small bowl of spaghetti, but the spaghetti must have been treated with butter before you put the meat on.
Goodness me. Mike says this, individually wrapped chocolate digestives or traditional packs, what is best?
I can't imagine why you'd have an individually wrapped chocolate digestive.
Well, you can get everything individually wrapped now. You get those big Quality Street things as well.
Yeah.
You know, the big purple ones.
Yeah. I don't eat chocolate digestives. I like ordinary digestives without chocolate on them. Chocolate, I don't think is that good for you on biscuits, okay, because it's very fattening. However, I do buy Jacob's cream crackers in packets of 4 because I find that once you open a whole package of Jacob's cream crackers, the rest goes soft very quickly.
Okay. Amin says this, why do you keep your information device on your shirt pocket? Don't you know radiation is bad for your already knackered heart?
Well, yeah, but I mean, it's already so knackered, there's not a lot that's going to happen to it by just being next to a mobile phone. And what's more, I have a fatalistic view of life. When your number's up, your number's up.
Here's one from Andy. He says he's off to New York City for the first time in a few weeks. Where can you recommend for food and bladderation?
Well, I'm going to throw that question back to you because you've been there more recently than me. Perhaps you could give me a recommendation to give to Andy.
Well, I could do. I mean, there's an awful lot of places where you could go where we used to go.
Yes.
But an awful lot of places where you can no longer go. But I would certainly go to the Oyster Bar at Grand Central, which is still there.
Oyster Bar Grand Central.
Which is a great place to go for some food. You can get a drink there. It's probably not the best place to get a drink. You should go to the Rainbow Room, perhaps, for a drink.
Yeah, definitely.
Which is a very glamorous spot.
Definitely. Want to go to an Irish bar and a really nice one. Smartly run, good food. Ryan McFadden's on the corner of 42nd and 2nd.
Yeah, Sally Costello's is no longer there. Well, there's 3 to be getting on with.
Yeah.
Here's one from Mr. Slokesville, who says, someone I know is always bragging about how skilled they are in every sport I mention. How can I shut him up?
Well, you shut him up, mate, by saying the proof is in the pudding. So what you do is find one particular sport which this guy is boasting about, but is not his best sport. So if he says, he's a great weightlifter or something like that, you can beat him. Get into the gym, train yourself up, and then you challenge him. And you challenge him in front of the best-looking girl in town, okay? And what you say is, you either do it, you put up, or you shut up. And that'll soon shut him up.
One final question from Paul. I cheated at the weekly Thursday pub quiz. Should I admit to cheating or enjoy my moment of fame?
Enjoy your moment of fame. Everybody else in the world cheats. Everybody cheats, okay? In one way or another, they cheat emotionally, they cheat with money, they cheat financially or whatever. Join the cheaters and you'll get on in life.
Okay. Well, that was some very good advice, very sound advice on the most part. Some of it I thought was slightly on the edge of madness. But,
really?
Generally speaking, what we asked people to do...
But you weren't being asked. You weren't being asked, I was.
No, that's right.
So you don't have to worry about it, okay?
Normally what we do is we ask people, if they've taken your advice, to let us know next week how it all went.
Yes, please.
And some of them have been very fulsome in their praise of you, funnily enough.
Excellent. Right. What, you mean we got some from last week?
No.
Oh, I see.
No, because we went on last week.
No. I thought you... Oh, you're absolutely right. I thought you might have said that from previous occasions you've had some very good responses.
We have in the past. That's exactly what I said. Why did you have to elongate it?
Yeah, because I wanted to hear it again, so that the audience appreciated that I was a man of goodness.
Excellent. Now, the show's nearly over,
Indeed, yeah.
Tomorrow we're going to do Porky Vision.
Porky Vision.
And then we're going to have a Porky quiz. We have to work out what we're going to do in the Porky quiz, actually, on Friday.
I've got a fantastic programme for Porky Vision.
Have you?
Ripper Street.
Don't tell me now.
Ripper Street.
Don't tell me now.
You're listening to the Two Mics on TalkSport.
This is a repeated programme, so please don't call the show as you won't get through, but you still may be charged.
We are the two mics.
Now listen, talking about politics, right?
We are talking about politics because, of course, there is the US presidential election coming up not very far away, actually, November, right?
Now, do you know what? I read this fantastic piece quite recently, and it was a detailed investigation into, the many aspects of Donald Trump's life.
Right.
But it was headed, "Is Trump a Russian agent?"
Right.
It's an extraordinary charge, but in forensic detail, a top Kremlinologist presents a dossier as tantalising and as disturbing. This guy's called Edward Lucas. Now, Edward Lucas is
I've heard of Edward Lucas.
Edward's a top journalist who writes mostly for The Economist, but he did this for a national newspaper, and it's quite fascinating. He says, as the New York Times reported, Mr. Trump's career has benefited from a decades-long and largely successful effort to limit and deflect law enforcement investigation into dealings with top mobsters, organised crime associates, corrupt union leaders, con artists, and even a one-time drug trafficker whom Trump retained as the head of his personal helicopter service.
Really?
Right? It says, but it is the presidential candidate's Kremlin connections which, to many minds, should attract the greatest scrutiny because they go well beyond the world of bricks and mortar.
But what does he suggest his Kremlin connections are, then?
Well, he says it started when Mikhail Gorbachev was still in power, right? And he sent an invitation to the Kremlin because Gorbachev was visiting America to visit him, Trump, at Trump Tower.
Of course. Because he considers himself to be a very important man.
Yes. What happened was, apparently, was that some news network or some comedy show or something like that put together, a Zil, like a Russian, and a guy who's a lookalike.
Pretended to bring him there.
And Trump was seen on the pavement bowing to the car and all this kind of stuff, but it wasn't
really
Gorbachev, of course.
See, that's the other problem with Donald Trump. I mean, he's a guy who, as you said earlier when we were talking to Kevin Dutton, the professor, if he puts him down on the psychopaths list, that's not so much of a surprise.
Yes.
But more importantly, you said he's an eccentric, but I mean, he's done a lot of really weird stuff like that. Been, like you said, he rings people up and pretends to be his own PR man.
That's right.
I mean, the idea that he could be president is I don't think particularly frightening. I just think it's weird.
Yeah, but it is weird. But apparently, this car turned up with two police outright. He generally and the bloke inside never got out the car. But Trump took that as being he actually came to Trump Tower.
Do you think he still believes that he actually met him then?
Well, apparently. Anyway. Undaunted that he didn't get out the car, he then pursued a range of business interests in Russia. He took this as a come on, it was almost like a thumbs up from Gorbachev, know. So, and he registered his name as a trademark in Moscow. He licensed it to a distiller, which then launched a brand called Trump Super Premium Vodka.
Yeah, that was another one of his ruses that didn't go very well. I mean, he had Trump steaks, that he was selling, that you could order online. He had the Trump University, which wasn't a university at all, but you could basically get a sort of an online or a mailed-in degree.
Yes.
And the Trump vodka, I think, didn't go at all.
Yeah. Did you know this? He then went and bought the rights to the Miss Universe contest.
Yes.
And in 2013, he took it to Moscow, the first time it had taken place in Russia.
Right.
Vladimir Putin was invited, and he sent a gift and a message of congratulations. But according to Aras Agalarov, a Russian property mogul who was the go-between for Trump and the Kremlin, Trump also signed a deal at the fifth attempt to build a Trump Tower in the Russian capital.
Right.
However, like many of the billionaires' much talked about projects, it remains unbuilt.
It didn't actually happen.
But the planning permission and the planning rights are still there.
Right. Well, it doesn't sound like he's got very many connections in the Kremlin at all. Well, sounds like he met a fake Gorbachev, right? He met some character who licensed his name and made some vodka. He then took...
Putin sent him a present.
Putin sent him a present.
Putin.
If it was Putin, and not the Comedy Channel. He's got permission to build a building he hasn't built.
Yeah, however,
I'm not convinced.
No, but this is where it gets sinister, you see. What the spooks now are saying is it's entirely conceivable that Russia will now review Trump's attempts to become, favourable with the Russians.
Yeah.
And
in case he becomes president, you mean?
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And Russia's wily spy masters would see the potential value of gaining influence with an American household name or even a man who is about to become the US president.
Right.
And so...
Well, it has been said that Putin certainly would like Trump to become president because it's entirely conceivable that Trump, who will be very, very kind of disinterested in international affairs, because all he cares about is building a wall around America, that he might actually just do away with all the nuclear weapons.
Exactly.
Because they're too expensive.
Exactly. And scrap NATO because it's inconvenient.
Yeah, he thinks they're all idiots.
Yeah. Anyway, Russian psychologists have... clearly identified that Trump has such a colossal ego, he responds with childlike eagerness to any flattery at all, is massively overconfident in his own abilities, with an almost pathological unwillingness to admit to mistakes.
Right. Well, I think you've seen that by the way that he reacts to he sneers at any journalist that has a go at him.
Yes.
He sneers at them, he insults them.
Yes.
He calls them names. He lets people sort of drag them out of various places. I mean,
That's right.
He is a very curious character.
Yeah, he is.
But, I mean, he's kind of so exaggerated and so full of himself that almost nothing he says you can believe.
No, it's true.
You know?
It's
I mean,
true.
Even down to whatever he's worth. He says he's worth billions and billions. It turns out he's not worth that at all.
Well,
I mean, he's not poor, but...
I mean, we know he's gone bankrupt, 3 or 4 times?
But he claims that's not true.
No,
except if he gets questioned on it, they go, well, hang on, here's the papers. But he will say, well, that was one of my companies. Yeah. That wasn't me.
Yeah, that's right. And he won't show his tax returns.
Right.
He used to run Eastern Airlines used to be called Trump, didn't he?
I think he bought it at one point because he ran a shuttle.
Yeah.
It was a shuttle to Boston and down to Washington.
It was. I flew on it a couple of times.
Right.
One of the funny aspects is what you've just touched on about him being his own PR man. I mean, he would ring up magazines, like top international magazines, like, Paris Match and all this kind of stuff, and say, I'm Donald Trump's top PR guy.
Right.
He's allowed me to give you a call.
Right.
That he and Cindy Crawford are now a big number.
Right.
And it was all
very bizarre behaviour.
Complete rubbish.
Very bizarre behaviour.
Particularly as he didn't do anything to shield his voice. You know what I mean? They said, well, he didn't even seem to have a hanky over the phone or anything like that.
Did he not have some long-running feud with somebody from Spy magazine, which was a bit like Private Eye over there, because they said he had very small hands.
That's right.
And he took such exception to it that he kind of chased them through the courts and lost.
And used to show exaggerated pictures of his hands and, with his arms small and that kind of stuff. Yeah. Very, very odd.
Very strange.
Strangest man you've ever met. But, of course, as you quite rightly say, the greatest fear is he could turn out to be the President of the United States of America.
I'd be amazed, When he first started running, I thought there's no chance that he's even going to get the nomination. But then when he did things that everybody else said he couldn't do, I then started to think, well, maybe he could actually end up being the President. But I think now that the polls are sort of showing people are coming more onto Hillary's side, I really can't see it.
Well, that's another aspect of this, by the way, because I read it in full and bits and pieces are coming back to me.
Yeah.
Apparently, the American Secret Service think they can detect that the Russians are actively working against Hillary Clinton.
Really?
I.e., all this email stuff and all that. They are using great resources to help reveal these things and then pushing them out into the American media.
Right. Well, that wouldn't be at all surprising.
No, it wouldn't surprise me at all.
I mean, I'm not convinced from what you've said out of that piece anyway that he has, connections in Russia.
Well,
maybe he's the guy that's telling this guy, Edward Lucas, that he's got connections in Russia. It's the kind of thing he would do.
Well, a lot of it is historical, isn't it? About, being fooled by a fake car that pulls up outside Trump Tower, all that kind of stuff.
Exactly. Exactly. Very, very strange. Loads and loads of tweets have come in. Here's one, a picture of some milk chocolate digestive bars. But they don't look like the sort of the real thing. They look like
they're not even Cadbury's.
An own brand.
What are they own brand? Are they Asda?
Yes.
Yeah.
I was trying to avoid giving out all the brand names, but thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
So, coming up, we've got Porky Vision tomorrow.
We have.
Bit of listography perhaps on Thursday.
Bit of listography on Thursday.
Then, what do you fancy doing a quiz on then on Friday?
On the quiz on Friday?
I mean, should it be something current?
Something current,
something which has been going on?
I mean, we had the Olympics, that's all gone. That's
we've done that.
Coming up next is...
why don't we do a quiz on Liam Gallagher?
Liam Gallagher? That's a good idea.
Would you do a quiz on Liam Gallagher?
I like that.
I think we could.
I think that's great.
I think your knowledge of Liam Gallagher is probably quite wide-ranging.
Yeah, and
it will not include a question which says, "What did he call you?"
Yes, exactly. Yeah, no, we won't.
Because we can't repeat that on a family
radio. And sometimes we take a subject which is just too wide. For instance, the American Civil War.
Yes.
Well, I mean, that is such a huge subject.
Yes.
That, I mean...
Well, I have to say, they were all chosen by you, these subjects.
I know, but I expect the people who set the questions to be responsible.
The independent quizmasters.
Yeah, the independent ask responsible questions like, what was the last battle in which Stonewall Jackson fought? You know what I mean? Or what was the name of the first submarine used by the Confederates in the American Civil War?
Well, that's not going to be in the Liam Gallagher quiz, is it?
No, of course it's not. What I'm saying is, I do not expect questions like, what was the name of the boy who sat 2 rows behind Liam Gallagher at his primary school in Ancoats in Manchester? You know what I mean?
I don't know what the questions will be, because, of course, I don't set them.
Yeah, you have no influence on
None at all.
Independent quiz.
Absolutely not.
You're listening to the Two Mics on TalkSport.
This is a repeated programme, so please don't call the show as you won't get through, but you still may be charged.